Hello and welcome to This Contains Garlic. You're here with your hosts Georgia Garlic
Mark Garlic.
and we're back. Today is Monday, a little bit later than the usual weekly podcast. Why was that, Mark?
I can't. Nothing comes to the top of my
Oh,
mind.
you're not obviously very relatable, are you? Why was it that we didn't record a podcast last week?
We were too busy making love.
I love how you turn that into something positive. And here's me being pessimistic. No, we didn't talk to each other pretty much all of last week. We were in an argument over absolutely nothing, really. We just didn't talk to each other.
It's nice to have a break every once in a while from talking to each other. So there's more stuff to talk about.
Exactly, Mark. So we'll just ignore each other for like 4 to 5 days straight and just get on with it.
Yeah, but
So if you're sat there and you're just like, do these people just talk to each other just like all the time?
No,
we do, but we do have like week-long breaks.
Went on holiday, mentally.
Mental holiday. I literally didn't talk to, barring clients, I didn't talk to anybody for a whole week.
I think there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, to be honest with you, sometimes you just need it for some mental clarity. So yeah, that's the reason why there was no podcast, because there was no conversation. It was silence in the Garlic household last week.
But it was like a monastery.
I know, I kid you not. Okay, so I don't know if people believe in daily horoscopes and like horoscopes and shit, but both me and Mark are Taurus, which can mean we both show very, very similar behavioural traits in arguments, which pretty much means we're too stubborn to either apologise or we don't want to talk to each other. So yeah, when we argue, it can end up in a great deal of silence
which
for
is
days.
Fine. Better than shouting at each other.
I went to London back. I could have died, do you know what I mean? And you wouldn't have even fucking known, because I wouldn't have WhatsApped you.
How are you going to WhatsApp me if you're dead?
I know, but I didn't even want to WhatsApp you. Do you know what I mean? That was the level. Anyway, back to what we're going to talk about.
These things happen, though.
It's not these things happen. I don't even know what we were arguing about. I feel really erratic at the moment. I've got this real strong.
You are always erratic.
I know, and I'm just like.
Ever since I've met you, you've been.
Oh my God, do you actually think I'm erratic? Or do you think I do have very mellow traits of silence, but my head, I just have to either I have to speak with people, otherwise I really struggle. And, you know, I've done, I don't know, years of like therapy and all of that stuff, and sometimes your brain just feels really erratic. And right in the last few months I just felt my brain
Do you not think that you maybe need a
holiday,
like an exceptional goal to work towards that consumes your thought process?
Mine's going to come in further education. I'm really feeling like I want to
because I feel like that will give you a little bit more mental clarity.
I just sometimes feel like when you've reached a level of like education in your like current job, which I'm not going to lie, like I can't really do much more, and neither can you, to be honest with you. And like, you know, I'm very much interested.
I think, there's nothing really we haven't learned anything really different or anything new as an industry for the last 30 years.
Literally. Because like if you follow the evidence-based principles.
Yeah, I mean, it's all pretty mapped out, isn't it?
Yeah, and like, you know, and also there's only a certain amount you can really apply to clients, you know, in the sense of practical application, which obviously is what we strive for.
It's more psychological than physical, though, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's what obviously I'm very interested in going, like, niching a little bit into. But but anyway, just feel a bit erratic. So yeah, we're here. Today we're actually going to talk about something which I think is probably quite close to your heart, and I think in a way it's affected you, and whether it's family and relationships, and also I guess with my own relationships and your own relationship with alcohol. This is something which we did a poll on our social media the other day, sort of related to some like World Health Organization stats. Now, I'm not sort of like a World Health Organization follower the whole time.
No.
And I think you would say the same.
I mean, let's not get into when it came to COVID, everyone kind of followed the rules. So I guess.
Where is COVID now? COVID went to sleep.
You would assume that the World Health Organization was a reputable source of some level of information
Yeah, you
I
could
mean,
say
you
it's
could
like
argue
a
that, but I feel like you could argue that with the vast majority of any mainstream organization with regards to, especially that are putting out educational information or health information in
Yeah,
general.
I mean, look, like it's stuff that like the world will run by, shall we say? Um, anyway, we did a few polls related to their current take and the recent research.
Yeah,
As
which was
to,
quite, I personally thought that was quite
well, what was it on?
surprising.
Let's say what it was.
Well, basically, their latest findings and research has indicated that even a incredibly light consumption of alcohol, a couple drinks, couple shots, here or there, once a week or numerous times per week, like class it as moderation, is still having a severely negative impact on your health.
Yeah, and we
And
asked the questions, what do you feel about this? Do you think that the laws should change? From a very non-biased opinion. And to be honest with you, like a lot of people did say, like, obviously, yes, like when you see the stats, they're like, oh my God, that's really bad. But I was kind of surprised by the people that were like, I don't give a fuck. And I was like,
yeah, but you're always going to have people that don't care.
no, absolutely. Like, I'm not expecting everybody to follow the rules of like direct health and everybody stop drinking. But do you think that might have been coming down to that deep rooted drinking
don't know.
culture over
I
the
think,
years?
I don't know. The way I've read into it and kind of looked into it is through an evolutionary biology lens, in the sense of we as a race of individuals have always held some level of alcohol consumption in high regards, and certain theories that people stopped being hunter-gatherers and started subsistence farming purely based on brewing beer. So we like changed our whole civilization so we could get pissed. I think where it kind of goes wrong is that most ancient, not most ancient, but like most civilization or pre-industrial revolution, the alcohol was 2%, 3%. It wasn't 20, 30, 40, 50% of what people consume on a daily or weekly basis, which is one thing that surprised me the most is that alcohol being in the same category as asbestos and radiation poisoning.
Yeah.
And it's something that is glamorized in
But I think if we go into like why it's glamorized, I think the biggest thing with alcohol now, I would say in a social situation, forget sort of just personal drinking, I guess, like having a glass of wine for yourself and whatever.
Yeah.
Like most people drink to maybe feel more confident, feel more courageous, feel more relaxed.
Sure.
And actually, alcohol and mental health are so closely linked because people drink to numb that, but also to numb the symptoms of mental ill health. But the biggest link to mental health is alcohol.
Yeah.
So it's this complete contradictory to what.
But I think it's like a sedative or a
it is a
downer.
depressant.
So you kind of numbing to a certain degree. It's like an anesthetic where you're like numbing yourself to not think about it or not deal with it. But then there are a lot of people that have positive associations with alcohol that find it relaxing, or I need to have a glass of red wine with my meal because it's X, Y, and Z.
But talk about the science of it. Like, alcohol is a depressant. Like, science tells you that immediately. Whether or not you want to agree with that or not.
It is a grade 1 carcinogenic.
It is a depressant.
It is, as much as cigarettes give you lung cancer or increases your overall chances of cancer, so does alcohol. They're in the same category.
Yeah.
But the difference is I can walk into the gym on a Monday morning and tell everybody that I drank 4 bottles of vodka and everyone will laugh and think I'm a legend. But if I walked in there and said, oh, I smoked 6 cartons of cigarettes, people would be like, what is wrong with you?
But I think if we go through to like the science of what alcohol actually does to the body, like technically when you drink something, it like disrupts what you would call like the balance of your neurotransmitters in your brain. So it effectively affects like the feeling, how we think, how we behave in situations. Now, it effectively controls the part of the brain which is inhibition, and that's like that direct link between feeling happy to then feeling very, very sad. And if you mask that, it effectively slows down your process, how you process things in your brain. So over time, you think, okay, this is doing me really well. This is making me feel great. Yeah. And even when you get a hangover, you're like, oh, I'm so hungover. That's effectively anxiety. That's depression. That's effectively telling you what it is doing to your body on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. And if you are dependent on something and you repeat this behavior day in, day out, week in, week out, it is going to have a detrimental effect on your health. Whether you are still stood there 60 years old or whatever like that, thinking, oh, fuck, this doesn't fucking faze me. It does. A lot of things that are probably happening in your life right now are probably related to your relationship with alcohol. And it's quite eye-opening. And I think, we're currently in the UK, not to be like fucking miserable, but obviously the NHS, our national health, is under like a huge amount of strain. So we don't have people working. We haven't got enough staff. We haven't got enough people to look after. There's not enough funding. Like there's fuck all funding. And alcohol alone, costs the NHS, just alcohol misuse. So somebody getting drunk and fucking falling over, breaking their arm, somebody having a fight. Actually, no, not having a fight. Somebody that personally just misuses alcohol costs the NHS
stomach pumped
3.5 billion UK pounds a year. And this is not the fact of the alcohol, forget the fact of personal misuse. The actual cost it has on the NHS for crime is 11 billion a year, and 7 billion pounds a year for loss in productivity through unemployment and sickness. So alone, and the biggest killer in the UK right now, alcohol. The biggest link to obesity and mental health and progressively health is alcohol, and yet everybody is behaving oblivious to it, barring those charities that are set up to...
Can I ask you a question? As a British person, what do you think drives and defines British culture with regards to alcohol?
The pub, the element of like...
I guess because like certain elements of like everybody living within a certain radius, going to a place where they can like interact with one another and there's like a sense of community. I think that's quite cool because like I classify myself as a person that is not from obviously I'm Zimbabwean, so from looking into the British culture.
It's embarrassing.
No, I understand, and I get the idea of having a local where you go down and you are the local within that kind of area, and you get to pump money back into the local economy. You get to build bonds and have a community-based. Obviously, it's centered around drinking, and that's kind of. But I kind of understand the idea of a pub, and I quite like the idea of like pubs that have got nice food and.
Mark, you're interested about the food, not the alcohol.
I know, but I like that. But like alcohol, like if there was no alcohol consumption at all, then would pubs be a thing where people can go down?
No, and this is the problem. This is the fight between alcohol intake. Premises in the sense of having bars, pubs, restaurants, the fact that alcohol is one of the foundational layers behind it, and without that alcohol intake you can't as an economy. But actually in the sense of the actual economy in the UK alone, alcohol in the sense of drinking in premises like bars, pubs, restaurants only takes up about 2% of the general economy.
Does it really?
Yeah. But that doesn't mean that the alcohol industry for personal use at home when you're not in these premises is obviously fueling like a massive issue. Well, we lived in South Africa, and when the pandemic hit, actually, this is something we should move on to because the stats past the pandemic are just even more eye-opening than we actually thought. But we lived in South Africa and we had a really, really strict lockdown, okay?
Yeah, we do.
To the point where there was like military on the streets and nobody was allowed out for weeks. Like we couldn't even walk the dog. No. What they did literally overnight was they made alcohol and cigarettes illegal.
Yeah.
So they took it
why?
from being...
Explain to everyone why they did that.
Well, why did they do this?
I would say there were two reasons.
How about you just asked me to explain it? There's two ways you could look at it. African ways of dealing with things is very inherently corrupt, and it was found that obviously ministers and all the people that were in control of these situations were obviously directly profiting off of it, and they were selling it directly on the black market, and they were the supplier. But then there's also the second side of it, which was the reasonings that they put out as to why they'd stopped alcohol intake specifically over the pandemic period. And that was because of domestic abuse and the way that people...
Gender-based violence.
Oh, it's horrific in South Africa.
Yeah, like dudes would just get really drunk and then go home and
couldn't even call them a fucking dude. Do you know what I mean? If you're hitting a wife, you've got a fucking problem.
Yeah, well, individuals.
Look, it's not to say that it doesn't happen with the opposite side, women to men, but, you know, on statistically, it is more, obviously, way more male.
In an African sense as well.
Yeah, because women are second...
a lot more shifted towards men beating women.
So I'm so for that, because if you're sat at home with your partner, they can't go to work, there's a pandemic, then absolutely do not fuel that alcohol thing. Like, I'm not going to lie, like your family, I'd say that maybe parts of my family have had alcohol problems and probably still do to a certain degree, whether it's hidden and it's all jokes, but actually there is an issue and the health is declining because of it. But your family is really bad for alcohol intake. Your parents not directly, your brother not directly.
No.
But go into your family.
Yeah, there's a couple, they like a few beers,
They like a few beers.
100 beers?
I'm sorry, but they can't even speak like a straight sentence without you being like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
like,
I know, but
you're going around
really
for lunch
sad,
at a barbecue and somebody's pouring vodka into a fucking beer.
I know, but that's a motivating factor. That's a motivating factor.
So it raged at the barbecue.
To not want to do it. You know,
yeah, it's honestly the most
when you see the negative impacts that alcohol has on individuals and how it can erode their mental health over a given period of time, then it just motivates you to be like, I don't want that to happen to me. So
yeah, and sometimes, you know, we have this conversation all the time, like how sometimes ill health can happen to those that you just think, fuck, how did they get stage 4 cancer? Do you know what I mean? How are they the unlucky ones when there's now, it's not to say that I don't think there's plenty of people walking around that are masking a huge amount of health like issues where you probably don't want to go and get tested for a number of things because you probably are maybe going to put yourself in a very vulnerable position. But you know, it's the same with like smoking and those that have died from smoking, you know, and those that smoke 70 cigarettes a day, but yet somebody that doesn't smoke anything gets cancer. It's like almost that really like unfair way of living. But I do think with alcohol, it's one of those things where, I don't know, I stopped drinking quite young, at a very young age actually, to be honest with you. Like probably the most I've drunk since then is like a glass of champagne at a certain occasion, and that's literally probably once a year. And even then, I stop at one glass or even half. It just doesn't work with me. And that's because I've had very poor mental health. And I think you could probably say that, like, how many times did you get like raged, like where you'd woken up and then like it was like literally suicidal Tuesdays? Do you know what I mean? You're like, fuck, I literally hate my life. What am I doing? Why have I drunk that much? Why have I taken that many drugs? Like,
yeah, but I mean, I haven't drunk properly since I was like 21.
Right, that's a complete lie, Mark.
No, like on a regular basis.
Regular, yeah, but why is it that, you know, this is the thing, we were watching the news the other day, and this poor woman, this mum they were doing a segment on how easy it is to effectively kill yourself by alcohol. And actually, if you look at the cost of things, it makes sense. So she was talking about, very unfortunately, her daughter passed away from effectively drinking a litre of high strength cider, okay? And that killed her. That killed her
£4.
daughter.
She spent £4.50.
She spent £4.50 on this and she killed herself, okay? Now, if you look at the cost of which is absolutely horrific.
She died from when you're lying on your back and you basically vomit into your own mouth. And
So it stops any kind of breathing or circulation of the body, and you're dead by effectively
you
drowning
drown
yourself.
yourself.
And so if you look at the costs right now, if I wanted to buy 12 Marlboro, no, a pack of 20 Marlboro Golds, I would pay about nearly just £13. Can I kill myself with 20 cigarettes? No. Will it have an effect on my health constantly doing that? Yes.
Yeah.
But I could go down the road, and I know this, and buy 12 pack of Fosters, 12 quid, okay, same price.
12 tins.
And I could kill myself with that.
Yeah, you could easily.
And that is what people don't quite understand. It's not just like, like in the UK, it's so glorified that we're like so great at binge drinking. And I get people are going to listen to this and go, wow, you're so boring. Like, it's not boring.
I think as like, we used to growing up, guys used to drink Friday, Saturday, pretty much 2 days a week. And then you wouldn't drink the rest of the week. But in the UK, it's a consistent, never-ending...
well, because obviously there's that direct link between like celebration and like social and like drowning my sorrows because I've broken up with somebody, or drowning my sorrows because I've lost my job, or things like you kind of commiserate, you all have a drink. If you're all happy, you all have a drink, and when you don't have a drink, people are the first to be like, you're fucking weird.
The judgment,
Not maybe now.
No,
you see a lot more.
Now, even nowadays,
no, I know.
Will still judge you. And that's the thing, is a lot of people feel so much pressure to drink less, and we see it on our weekly check-ins when clients say that they've got the best intentions of not drinking alcohol, but then they feel that the peer pressure and the social stigma around not drinking, especially living in London. It obviously has a negative impact on people who don't necessarily want to live that type of lifestyle.
It does, and I think it's very, very hard. Potentially put yourself in the position, and I'll put myself in the position of being maybe a single woman or girl growing up, you know what I mean, in places like London, and maybe you're dating, maybe you want to meet new friends, like all of it is related to alcohol. Like I didn't once go on a date with a guy which wasn't alcohol related. It wasn't like going, should we go for a coffee? It was just not the thing. And the reason that is because I wanted a bit of confidence of having a drink, and they probably wanted a bit of confidence having a drink.
Did you never have a first date in the gym? Meeting somebody in the gym and then putting them through their paces?
Well, yeah, that's you.
Oh, me, okay.
Well, if there was another one of you, I'd be slightly concerned. Yeah, just because you want to like do weird shit to me whilst I was in weird positions in the gym, let's not reflect your fetishes.
You groomed me from the very
I groomed you. Do you want to know the age difference between who groomed who? Let's just point out who was at whose
I was a
young
very
birthdays.
Naive African man.
Naive? You'd been in the UK for like 8 years, I swear.
Yeah, no.
How are you naive?
I'd just been, working diligently.
Is it because you'd only experienced African girls and just very unattractive English girls?
Yeah, pretty much. That's the one thing.
I thought you agreed with that because I'm staring at you like you fucking don't say anything about anybody else.
Zimbabwean girls are not attractive, though.
No, then, literally, I'm saying no, they're not.
Say it with my chest. I know it's really mean to say that. But
South African, there's a few.
Yeah, that's very different.
Well, didn't you go to the same university as Candice?
Yeah, that's different. That's South Africa. That's South Africa. I'm talking about Zimbabwe. I'm talking about Friday night, go down to the Tin Roof.
Yeah, I'm sure you'd see a bunch of cretins there. Like, but again, Friday night go down to the Tin Roof. Like, is anybody just like instead like all like not drinking alcohol? It's just
No,
it's. I
everybody's
get it because
getting
like when
lit.
I was younger, it's that really cool thing of like I started going to like nightclubs and drinking and smoking and taking drugs at a very young age. Like not to anybody else's issues, it was all mine. But and I thoroughly enjoyed it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I really did. I had fake IDs. I was much more grown up than what people thought I was. Still to this day, people think that I'm much older than I actually am. And like I loved it. And then that kind of started to wear off. Where
I think once you kind of experience it, especially from a young age, then you kind of get it out your system.
no, not really. You just start to begin to misuse it, and then you realize that like the effects it has on your health, like when you end up in very shit situations, like
Sure.
either you're sat like in a hospital getting your stomach pumped, or you're
Yes.
fucking, completely coked off your tits, unable to understand or alliterate anything, or you're sat there and you're manically depressed and on huge amounts of mental health medication. Nobody can understand why.
Yeah.
And then the first thing you do is reach for something like alcohol or drugs or cigarettes and hope that at some point you're going to feel better. And the reality is you're not. And so people always say to us, like, what does it feel like not to drink? You know what I mean? And it's like, you're always going to feel great. Like, that's the
Yeah,
reality.
yeah.
Like, you're not going to wake up the next day and feel like shit.
Yeah.
You're not going to eat or strive to consume a poor nutritional diet
No.
due to it, because you're not effectively just making yourself want to crave like
But
high fat, high sugar.
But I feel like everybody knows that drinking is not good for them, but they just don't. They just value the positive aspects of it more than the negative aspects of it. So going down to meet your friends and family on the weekend, lots of decisions have been made during the week, stressful situations, maybe your boss is a dickhead and you want to just
Yeah, I
go
get
out,
that.
you want to just
I do get that, and I
have a
also
great
say
time. And a lot of people do have really good fun memories of getting pissed with their mates.
it's not always getting pissed. Like some people can, like
Yeah,
when
some
you build
people
up a
just
tolerance.
get a little buzz, yeah. So
No,
not
just
just
they just
getting,
want a glass of wine or
Yeah.
a G&T or whatever. And I do think like I'm not agreement of people drinking every day. And I know there was loads and loads of shit that was always plastered in the media. Like you need to drink a glass of wine a day if you want to lower your blood pressure and fucking lose weight and all of this shit. And it was always used as like one glass of red wine a day will just miraculously save you. Like, and then people were like, actually, alcohol is really good to have on a day-to-day basis. Like, they're telling me this is good. But that's also very strongly linked to alcohol companies and industries that have huge amounts of marketing budgets that put it in your face all the time. Like nobody sees an advert for smoking, do you? It's just stop smoking. But my God, you hear a Gordon's gin and tonic, bit of jokey, bit of this, bit of that. You know what I mean? Alcohol adverts all over the place. I know multiple and have trained multiple people who worked in the alcohol industry. Like
for Diageo,
Sipsmith, like what's that beer company? Oh, Budweiser.
Budweiser.
And it's obviously a multi-billion-dollar industry worldwide, trillion probably worldwide.
It's trillions
But
of dollars annually.
It's also, I struggle to see the contradictory link between it. When I see, now I appreciate news is all news, but like I see the links of news and the stuff like, the strain on the NHS and the strain on this and the strain on that, and it's all linked to
But I guess,
overuse
there are a lot of, jobs that are being taken up within that industry of the manufacturing. Like, remember we watched that program where that guy was making cider.
Crazy.
Making cider, they were making he was like, we're making 100 million litres of cider for the Brits to drink over the year.
I think it was even, no, I think it was more than that.
It was crazy numbers. It was millions and millions and millions of litres of cider. But there are jobs and industries and families that depend on a healthy consumption of.
But there is
alcohol.
this link, because you asked me, like, what what do I think about like the UK's, like why the UK drinks so much, like in general.
Yeah.
Now, there is also this. Now, this is quite a controversial thing to bring up, but there is a strong link also between like unemployment and alcohol intake, and our country is like very giving to those that are sometimes unwilling to work, like very giving.
Yeah.
And
the affordability
the affordability of alcohol, you know, that people just think that like they can effectively just slump, not everybody in any way, but like, you know, a percentage of people do just sit there and misuse alcohol on effectively state government money, you know. So
but that being said, like there was a study that I read to you not like 15 minutes ago, saying that when it comes to the socio-economic status of the individual, people of a higher socio-economic standard have been shown to consume more alcohol than people of a lower
Oh, 100%. Ask my father, I'm sorry, this is going to dog my father in. Ask my father a fucking literally a label on a bottle of wine. He'll have like 6 different fucking apps on his phone. Geez. He'll know the year that grape was even fermented. I don't even know what happens with a grape. Like, you know.
There are people that say that they know stuff about wine, and then there's your father who's like, he literally knows absolutely everything.
Yeah, it's a massive passion of my father's. Now, I don't think my father's got a drinking problem of any degree, but he does enjoy to drink. Yeah. Now, it's the same with, I've worked with clients, and I do still work with clients whose partners are going through cancer treatment right now, and they still drink bottles and bottles of wine a week. And I just really struggle with that. These people are financially well off, you know, it's not people that are struggling. But I do really struggle to get on board with that. That one, it's encouraged, where like you could give yourself a chance. Like, I'm not saying that when you get diagnosed for level of, you know, stage 4 or 5, that anything is sometimes possible in those stages. But if you want to give yourself the best quality of life going through this treatment,
but then what about the like the positive association? So the mindset of maybe I have X amount of time left.
So I'm going to enjoy it.
So I'm going to enjoy it and make sure that I'm, you know, not.
But how do you know, like,
you really enjoy?
If you're put on palliative care, like that's when you know that I'm very unfortunately you're going, you know, you're effectively waiting to die of some degree, and it's only just very much recently happened to one of my parents' friends, and it's kind of eye-opening at that age that everybody's you know, I just know so many people of that age range that. It's like desperately sad that you've watched all these people throughout when you've grown up and, you know, who are very successful and yet can't even enjoy any of it because of what has happened in their life and how they've picked, you know, it's like, I get the fact that if you've been literally given, you've got 2 years, but do you know how many people have been told they've got 2 years and have just tried to live the best quality of life possible and lived longer?
Yeah, but I guess that this is also, like you said, we value health and wellness so highly, so we're always looking at it through a slightly biased standpoint of, well, why don't you want to improve
No, because I've always seen
best?
2 sides to this. Like, I abused myself massively. Like, I abused myself for years. Like, you know what I mean? That's a form of self-harm in a way. Do you know what I mean? The way so I see the fact of why people do this. Like, it's not the fact that I'm oblivious to the fact that people either enjoy drinking or there's that personality side to it.
Yeah, but maybe they just don't value wanting to live a healthier lifestyle. They just value what they value.
You don't have to live a healthy lifestyle. Like, healthy is different for everybody. Like, health is different for everybody.
Or just do productive self-care habits.
If you have not got a time length put on you, you know what I mean, and you're not on the, you know, and things can be managed to a degree, why would you not just want to give yourself the best chance for the sake of your family, your friends, your children? Like, and this is what I don't understand, because actually you could say, oh, they'd be like, right, well, you know, you could die in 5 years' time, or you could die in 3 years' time. We don't know. Well, why don't you try and make those 3 years something where you're effectively making the best from something and giving yourself a chance? You've got... Unless, as I said, palliative care, and it's, you know, it's absolutely horrific situations, like, you do have a chance to help yourself. both
Yeah.
mentally and physically.
No,
I'm
I
not saying
agree.
go in the gym and you've got to follow structure, but I'm saying just mentally and physically you have a chance. And you could say that, like, you know, in the sense of your own relationship with your, you know, your family's relationship and very close siblings of yours that have. Do you wish that like your brother wasn't so, you know, he was manically depressed and you know resolved his life around alcohol and drinking and
Yeah, it was. I mean, yeah, I guess it's just one
and
of
where
those
did
things
that
where,
not end up? Like, it was horrific, but you know, it's
I mean, like it's again, it comes down to two things: culture and environment. And
environment. Yeah.
if you are putting yourself into an environment of people and surrounding yourself with people that are, you know, consume alcohol on a consistent basis, and you hang out with them all the time, obviously you're going to be persuaded into alcohol consumption. So when it came to my brother, it was there's not much else to do in Harare apart from on a Friday night go and get pissed.
But he was so intelligent in the way that you knew, like, whenever he'd worked, he'd done well at things. But the problem is that environment is that, like, let's go and drink, let's go and do this, let's go and take cocaine, let's get fucked up. And for
Because I
those
think
that one
I think
person,
for a lot of people it's escapism where they're not enjoying their day-to-day conscious existence having a negative impact on their mental health. And Friday, Saturday with the boys and the lads is the, you know, the only thing that you look forward to. People living for the weekend so they can go out with their mates and they can escape from the mundane day-to-day
yeah, I get it, but like, you know,
grind.
if you talk about the science stuff of it, like, you know, if you reduce the number of neurotransmitters that you have in your brain from effectively, that effectively gives you like less. It's like
Yeah.
you need a certain level to not feel anxious and depressed all the time. We then go and fuel that with alcohol, which
yes.
makes it worse and worse and worse. But it's known that in, you know, the mental health, like if you are somebody that deals with severe mental health issues, I'm not just talking like a bit of light anxiety, I'm talking severe ill mental health, you know, you are more likely to drink because of the neurotransmitters you have in your brain and how it effectively chemically is structured. And this is the fucking problem, is that alcohol industries do not and are not willing to take responsibility for the mass amounts of suicide that happen, especially in males in the UK a year alone from alcohol. And the fact that all of these people that are being admitted to hospital, that are admitted, they're all alcohol related and nobody takes responsibility. Yet when I want to go and buy a pack of cigarettes, which I'm totally in agreement with, we shouldn't be promoting, but you see some dead fetus on the fucking packet and you're like wardened off from smoking anywhere near the radius of this, and God for fucking bid, you should light something up. You go to Australia, people will be like, like
clutching his heart as he
yeah,
as
like
he's
fucking,
falling
and the
down
child's
stairs.
looking at the dad dying down the stairs. You know, when I went to Australia, I was smoking in Australia. This was years ago, and I travelled
no,
obviously
they
to go and
don't.
find myself.
They
And like
don't.
a packet of cigarettes in Australia at the time, I think was something like maybe 18 Aussie dollars. Like, so it was a lot of money. That was more than the UK. And you are not allowed to blow smoke in the circumference area of
Yeah,
anywhere.
of
If
anywhere.
you light up a cigarette, even outside a restaurant, oh my God, are you judged? And I'm not saying judging behaviour is good, but it means that their
but
smoking is less.
out of all the people that we know that have moved to Australia that were smokers, for that exact reason is the reason why they gave up smoking.
The problem is in the UK, everything's fucking accessible all the fucking time, whether it's alcohol, cigarettes,
But I
drugs,
guess
food.
but what about,
it's just too instant.
but as a society, it should come. Everyone's past a certain age. You become, you know, responsible for your own actions, and if you, as an adult, decide you want to, you know, work hard, you pay your taxes. You can do with it what you want. Do you know what I mean? You can live your life how you want.
100% live your life how you want, but then don't go and put strain on a public health system. Point one. Don't then go and try and mimic that and advertise this shit. Point two. Like, you know, there's so many things that should be brought in. Like, I am full agreement. There should be way more laws. Like, if younger people are killing themselves, do you know what? People are panicked about a vape pandemic at the moment. You're worried about vaping. Fuck. Like, what about like when you go and like drink a whole bottle of vodka in a park surrounded by a bunch of chavs and you think you're cool and you end up dead or your stomach's being pumped in hospital? Trust me, I fucking know. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not something I'm oblivious to. And yet you're seeing your parents have that glass of wine every evening, bring alcohol in, and it's not something we should be
I had a couple of mates that lost their lives to drink driving when we were at high school as well.
Would you say your brother lost his life due to alcohol? Or do you think well,
I would say alcohol, but had a large.
Do you think that made his like mental health much worse?
Yeah,
obviously.
Yeah, no. He became, when he started drinking, he was like
an animal.
Yeah, he was crazy.
Yeah, and I think, you know, like,
and it's just like with everything in life. I guess there's statistical outliers in every category. So for some people, when you drink alcohol and it gets broken down into the different elements and your body digests it, good luck. For some people, you know how many people everyone's got that one mate who's really, really sound until they start drinking and it turns into an arsehole.
Yeah.
And that's part of it is obviously, part of that is a chemical reaction that just doesn't sit well with some people. So,
like, I used to live with a couple actually, like when I was younger, I was in a house share, and like, oh my God, when they drank together, that was a fucking problem. It goes from literally, oh my God, I love you so much, like, we're going to get married one day, can't wait to go for a walk today, to screaming at each other at 3 a.m. in the morning.
I guess now, do you think that's, not all of that is like a true reflection of their relationship or,
absolutely not.
Blah, blah, blah. That is a chemical reaction that is manipulating your internal hormones to just feel a certain way.
Like, I would say that I think this is very different, but I genuinely don't trust myself on alcohol. And not in the sense that I believe that my character is not trustworthy. I just don't trust myself around alcohol. I don't know what I'm going to do if I get very drunk and I'm not in the right environment. Like, not in the sense that I've ever, like, I did used to black out, but I've always specifically remembered shit.
For some people, like, when you
I've been in the most embarrassing
black
situations,
out and you wake up the next morning and you're asking people what, I
think my sister had a friend like that literally just used to black out.
Oh my days, Vince! After 3 drinks, he's on autopilot.
But it's like almost like if you are like
and
that,
it's so
why
worrying.
Yes, it
like,
is worrying.
Dude, you drove us home.
Oh my God!
You can't remember past 8 p.m. We went home at 4 a.m. in the morning. You were the one driving. He was like, really?
Oh my God! You actually got in the car with these people, you dumb fuck.
Yeah, but drink driving in Africa is like a sport.
It was like. Would you say you've ever driven?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, I have as well, and I'm definitely not something I'm proud of. Fuck.
Twice. Obviously, my drinking career is really poor, but like I stopped drinking properly when I was like 21.
Yeah, and like when you had your stag do, Mark was throwing up all over himself whilst go-kart.
Oh yeah, that was so
you know Mark's not going to go and like finger off somebody in a strip club. Do you know what I mean? He's too sick. He'll be throwing up on himself.
Yeah, I just vomited all over myself, and then they just put me in a taxi.
Like, we did have quite a good time when we first got together, but I still think, and I think both of us look back at that time, we just go like that. That was
I think there's just a time and a place for that. We were obviously very, at that given time in the culture as well. It was, everyone was raging at that point in time.
I definitely think I chose this, but I definitely think I've lost friends from not drinking, and that's fine because your environment clearly primes you. Do you know what I mean?
Your role as a friend shifts dramatically from like you're the person that they call when they're on a motive and they're going out and they want to, get loose on the weekend, like I said, which is most people living for the weekend to socialize with their friends and family. But when you're not part of that, then you become the Sunday crew, the Sunday roast.
Like, I would always say that I was quite like a supplier. Like, if I, like, in the sense of like, I was always going to have never, like, I'm right. Okay, so let's talk about a social situation here. Young, maybe there's drugs and alcohol involved. Okay, if you're listening to this and you can't stand the word drugs, just go over yourself. There are the people who scrounge, do you know what I mean? Who are like, oh, let's just see how much I can just not pay my way in a social situation. And I'm just going to try and get as drunk as possible, as high as possible off everybody else's shit. And then there's the suppliers, the people that come prepared. I was a prepared.
You sat in the Uber and you're like ready to split it. And they're like, oh, I can't, I'll pay you next time.
Yeah, I'll pay you next time. I'll get you a drink. And then that drink never happens. It's fucking so many people.
Whose
London
round is it? And then when it's their round, they're in the toilet.
Yeah, literally, it's like so convenient. I when I say this, I actually am literally envisioning like some people that I can't have my life.
They're the people that are pre-planning. That this is going to happen. You understand the traits of everybody, and you pre-plan so that you.
But would you not say that me and you are the same? Like we would be both pre-prepared. This is a fucking
problem. We over-planned, and we make sure everyone is always
advocated for. Yeah.
That people are going to be squared away. That need to be squared away. People are going to be more demanding later on in the evening, so you've always got to accommodate for these kind of individuals.
Like people always knew that we would have like a debit card that could get cash out of. You know what I mean? Like I definitely think that a lot of the time the problem is that I was too prepared.
Yeah, and that creates.
Yeah, like it can create like I don't know. So I guess. Sorry, you're just like talking about something and just like imagining like people's faces in my head right now. But no, I do think that being over prepared for these things and being somebody that wants to make sure everybody's okay, you then end up with friends who are like, oh yeah, like those two should come, or they should come, or it should come, or they, what I mean? Because like they're guaranteed to have shit on them, or they're going to bring like 6 bottles of wine, or they're going to fuck it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we're going to be prepared because the vast majority...
I was never a peasant,
the vast majority of times I've always been out, especially with English people. You go out, nobody's got a plan, nobody really knows what to do. Half of you go one place, half of you go to another place. You end up at the local pub and then you go home. Do you know what I mean? Nothing is planned, nothing's prepared. And trying to get anything done is like herding cats.
And you think as though
like
Mark's
trying to get people into the taxi, you've got
no balls at asking people for money, like none. Like when it comes to your friends, like, and it's because it's that thing where like I probably am the same. I don't really like asking people for money. I find it really weird. I need to get over that. But like,
yeah, but there's also certain people that are like, oh, dude, remember when I paid for that Uber and you owe me like £7? Can you please, you're like. Dude, I paid for the entire table and all.
Yeah, I'll never forget. We literally we'll pay for like 8 to 12 people, or nothing worse. Even this is completely different. You go out for a meal. There's a group of 10 of you, and then the bill comes.
Yeah.
Which person are you? Are you the person that needs to break down and add up exactly what you have, or are you just going to split it equally? Because I don't even drink, and I will still pay for people's fucking alcohol.
It depends.
Because I can't stand it.
If people are getting like really lit, then no, I'm not interested in paying for your alcohol. Back
in the day, it'd be like split it just to pay for it. Do you know what I mean? We're just going to pay for it, and that's the problem.
The one thing that I hate more than anything in my existence on this planet is indecisiveness and just going round and round and round in circles.
It's like you had this, you had that.
Who's got the calculator? Who did it? There, I've got no interest.
Yeah, the ADHD's kicked in. We're out of there. Literally, I'm like, just pay my car.
I'll settle the whole bill myself. Can we just move on? But
I would say that financially, like at the ages of which we were actually doing really well financially for like what some of our friends who were like maybe like still studying or like in their first like. We worked fucking hard in London and we did get paid a lot.
But I think it was the time and the place to work hard, and then everybody wanted to play hard.
But then the environment changes. But I definitely think, like, I don't think it's wrong to lose friends.
But I think there's a time and a place, because everybody was in their early to mid-20s. You know, people were, you know, had a little bit of, so most people had just come from uni, so this was like the first time that they were earning a little bit of money. A lot of the guys that we used to hang around with weren't from London, they were from elsewhere, so everyone was kind of experiencing London and the kind of London culture in that.
London culture is great, but it's also fucking
certain demographic.
It's got worse. I mean, like, moving on from this, like, obviously we've said that, like, environment is, like, key, and, like, as you've just heard, like, how important environment is for you to then effectively not get sucked into things that are going to make you worse or feel worse for the sake of other people. Like, remember, like, unfortunately, there's not many people, and we always say this, that genuinely have your well-being, like, as their first and foremost, like, give a fuckable. Like, most people just don't give a fuck these days, and this is the thing. Anyway, going from that, we were going to vaguely mention just like what the stats say post-pandemic of people's alcohol intake, and I think this is something that, again, we very much understand why the intake would have increased during the time of the pandemic, and that would have been due to the fact they were bored, whether they had trauma going through, maybe they'd lost people, maybe they couldn't see people, maybe it was just a way of trying to connect. And carry on.
Do you think working from home also?
Yes.
So, like, because, like, there's nothing worse than going to work with a hangover, you feeling rotten.
But if you only need to wake up at 5 minutes to 9, do you know what I mean?
Feeling rotten from the comfort of your own home, then it's not too bad.
And I think if you've got, like, maybe a partner there that influences it even more, or maybe, like, for housemates that influence it more, or, you know, all of it just is, like, it's very hard to not.
How do you escape it? Let's talk about trying to. I know we're going to sidetrack, but let's talk about how do you navigate these situations?
I guess it's much easier said than done, but, like, I guess the biggest things that, like, I guess alcohol dependent, you know, people with alcohol dependence, you know, when they go to charities or they seek help from, and these are people that are very dependent on alcohol, not those that can necessarily moderate it, but they say that the 3 biggest things that are going to help you: meditation, yoga, and exercise. And I know it sounds like, oh, you fucking what? Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not meditating to shit. But, like, again, it's the power of the mind. Do you know what I mean? Your mind's technically telling you that you need to drink. If you feel it with a different distraction or something that's actually helping you through that, the likelihood is that you're going to be able to reduce that intake. And I think some people, and like everything in this world, I don't think really many people think of other people. So if you're in this situation, you're going, well, I only drink like a couple of glasses of wine a night, or a day, or a week, or whatever, I'm fine, do you know what I mean? It's not really you that we're fucking talking about, do you know what I mean? But you also need to switch on to the effect it has around you, because those percentage of people are increasing that are becoming more and more dependent on it.
Yeah, but that study from the World Health Organization does state that light to moderate consumption of alcohol are the vast majority of people leading the cancer rates. So and that their definition of light consumption is less than the UK's government recommended 35 units a week.
Yeah, but you know, they say that, and this isn't even like the most recent stats, but 1 million people more since the pandemic have become addicted to alcohol since COVID, okay?
Wow, that's a
so
lot,
1.5 million adults drank over 50 units per week, okay? And now that was 2.5 million people by the summer of a year later.
Could you imagine trying to fit all those people into Wembley Stadium?
Or how much alcohol they drink into Wembley Stadium. You know, this is, again, let's talk about nutrition and alcohol, because there's obviously, now we worldwide obviously are dealing with an obese civilization. Like, in general ways, our traits are going towards being more obese than maintaining weight, okay?
Yeah, sure.
And so people are so strict to talk about things like sugar intake, fast food intake, takeaway intake, all of these things that we intake on a day-to-day basis, okay? but always seem to forget the one thing that people will happily consume and will be glorified, which is alcohol. Now, when you drink, as we said, you're more likely to want the foods that are effectively not so great for your health on a day-to-day basis. Okay?
Kebabs, yeah.
A kebab's okay, and I'm talking like the hangover, the buying of the foods, the constant like your hunger
chips with
hormones
curry
being
sauce.
completely skew-off.
Pizza.
You know what I mean? You're reaching to a takeaway. You're reaching for convenience. You're not reaching for a home-cooked meal when you're fucking hanging out your ass, okay? And I know this because I was at one with Domino's. But, like, literally.
My favorite place is like when you go to those really, the joint after the club to get the chow.
Cheesy chips.
Yeah, the chow before you go home, and you just see...
You go and throw it up all in the toilet when you've eaten too much.
You just see all the creatures there.
Yeah, in the kebab shop when you're eating something that looks like a dead rat, but you don't even care. Yeah.
I remember, oh, jeez.
I've never had a kebab in my life. That's really weird.
Have you never?
Only cheesy chips from a kebab house.
That's a very good, that's a logical thing to have.
Yeah, because I just thought that maybe the meat wasn't cooked and maybe I'll end up with food poisoning as well as alcohol poisoning and just throwing up. So I just thought maybe not.
I think my favorite kind of go-to when you're really drunk is, not that I've been drunk.
Exactly. Do you know what I mean? You're talking like you fucking...
KFC. I remember I had...
Mark, you won't even... You'll eat KFC without being drunk. Do you know what I mean? Like, you like KFC, but I just don't allow you to have it that much.
I bonded with Dylan over a KFC once when we were really drunk, and it was a moment.
I'm sure the last time you were really drunk, you probably threw up. Do you know what I mean?
I always
yourself.
throw up when I drink, and I do. That's most of my experiences with alcohol always make me very nauseous and vomity.
Yeah, and again, nobody cares about your fucking nauseousness.
Oh my god!
It's a bit gross talking about throwing up on. It really is. It's like one of those.
Talk about the time that I was the most vulnerable.
The most vulnerable. No, because let's not talk about the most vulnerable times of your life. But
George has definitely seen me at my worst.
Yeah, I've got photos of it as well. If we were ever famous, like, fuck. I wouldn't want to know, like, what was on my phone of just you being
What do you
weird.
think the Daily Mail headlines of you would be?
So this is what I used to talk about. I hope this client listens to this episode. Maybe I'm going to message her because she's going to specifically remember. I used to train a girl called Celia who, I swear to God, like, she was just one of the best clients ever. And we always used to say, like, what would happen if one of us was murdered or like we'd done something, like what the news article would be. And she went to the same university as Kate Middleton. And we always came up with this thing, it was going to be like Kate Middleton's best friend at uni murdered in a rash. Do you know what I mean? Like literally, it was always going to be something to do with Kate Middleton because she went to St Andrews. Yeah,
you gotta.
I don't know what they'd say about me. They'd probably find a photo of me back in the day, which they're coming up at the moment. Fuck the Facebook memories. I'm like, bro, I don't need to be fucking.
You went to the same school as the Labour dude.
But he went to the school when it wasn't private. That sounds so pretentious.
How does he?
Keir Starmer.
Keir.
Yeah, but he would never. I mean, now it's obviously like a 50 grand a year school or something ridiculous.
Oh, okay.
Maybe 40k. I don't even know. 20k. I don't fucking know.
I love how in
because
this
I'm not going to have
country,
children.
when you call a school public, it's actually private.
Yeah, well, a comprehensive.
And another thing, this is also a tangent, but what really blew my mind about British culture is there's such a emphasis on whether or not you went to a private school or not. Like people will like kind of form their
I've literally had
entire
it all my life.
personalities around whether or not they did or they did not. Do you know what I mean? People are like, they come out and they're like, "Where?" And you're like, that's a really random thing to say.
No, honestly. In fact, we experienced
We've
it
had
here, actually.
so often where it's like people go on like these rants about it, whether they did or they didn't. And it's like...
Well, like, obviously I went to private school all the way through my life, and I'm not fucking afraid to say that. I know that a lot of people don't necessarily have the opportunities that I've had in my life. Like, I'm very aware of my surroundings and how I come across to people with it. But there is this thing where like if you are sat on the other side of like having been to private school, like you get so much shit, whether it's in workplace, whether it's like this whole thing that daddy, like if you've gone to private school as a girl, okay, I have never experienced it more actually in my later years, like how many people just assume that daddy's like your fucking funder. Do you know what I mean? Now, I will say time and time again, my father has helped me a lot throughout my life, and he has worked fucking hard to be able to do that. My dad didn't come from like fucking mass amounts of wealth and this and that. He has worked goddamn hard and has had huge amounts of setbacks, push forward all the way through his life, okay? So then assuming that like everything's come from your parents when like I had to stand in a fucking gym for 15 hours a day. Do you know what I mean? Dealing with people that were sometimes not the nicest of people, dealing with you know what I mean? To earn what we have. Now, okay, there are times in your life, and I'm around a lot of people whose parents might help them buy a house and this is generational wealth. Like, are we going to see this generational wealth past our age? No, definitely not. Like I think this is our generation is going to spend it all. But it's this assumption when you've gone to private school. Number one, you could have been on a scholarship. You don't bloody know. Number two, that you're pretentious as fuck and you literally can't. You think that the world shines out of your arsehole.
Yeah, literally.
Like, and the thing is though, neither of those things are correct. Like, you're looking at the leaders of this country who have all been to Eton. That is like a different level of private school. Yeah. Like, okay, they're all fueling up to like give each other's wedgies and like wank each other off in the bathroom and whatever. You know what I mean? There's huge drug taking in Eton College.
Is there?
Yeah, massive amount. Obviously, all those pompous twats have like shoved shit up their nose. Like, there's standards of private school. I've been to like, I've experienced it, but when we moved to where we are now, which is in Surrey, okay, so Surrey, Hampshire border, like I was brought up in Surrey. But we live in an apartment block, a very nice one, but downstairs, one of the flats, like I'd probably say that a lot of the people that live here probably have been privately educated. Like I do get that vibe. In fact, I know the guy downstairs has been. Yeah. But the first thing was like based off of how I spoke, it was you went to private school, didn't you? Yeah, and I was like almost like, what the fuck?
You have a posh accent.
But what's wrong with being able to speak okay, well? Like, my mum and dad begged for me not to speak like a complete twat when I was younger. I was very good at picking up accents.
Your accent is so posh.
Oh, here we go. Your mum's like so fucking dry. Do you know what I mean? You sound like you're about to do a diss. Like, literally.
Your voice is so posh that in South Africa they couldn't understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I was like, I'm so British. Why do you not understand what I'm trying to say?
Nobody had a single clue what George was saying at any given moment. I
had to give the phone to Mark.
Yeah, all the time. She's like, goes on the phone, struggles, walks over, passes the phone to me, and then just walks away.
Yeah, I know, but but I know standards of speaking as well. I know people that speak far more eloquently than I do. My mother.
I would love to get your grandfather on a podcast because he literally sounds like King Charles. King Charles,
yeah. But based off how I spoke, what is wrong with speaking? Look, just speaking the way that you do.
You're based off your environment, surely.
Yes, and also, like, why is it that something that you're going to judge my complete character based on the fact that you assume because I speak well that I've gone to a private school and that I'm pretentious as fuck? You've not even met me. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? You've not even understood, like, what we are, who we are.
And if somebody does have a really posh accent and they did go to private school, doesn't necessarily mean that they have manners and morals.
Absolutely no way. In fact, I probably know way more people that have done way more with their life.
That's the thing that blew my mind is people put so much emphasis on it that, you almost like stereotype one into good, one into bad. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, hold on. Most of the people that have been privately educated in this country have got no manners.
Like, I was always anti-private education to the point where, like, I used to try and hang out with people that didn't go to private schools. Like,
but
a lot
why?
of my... I don't know, because I was so sick and tired, I guess. Why?
Why? But surely the curriculum and the education is almost identical.
No. Disagree. When people
don't
were striking, private schools were not striking.
No, I get that. But
No,
what
I
do
would
you
say
le-
that
but
there is a
When
difference.
we went to high school, our education was Cambridge and Oxford, whatever the standard
Oh.
of education was in the UK.
AQA.
What is? Surely it's the same thing. Does the whole UK not run
The
on?
argument is that I think potentially primary school you would be able to literally
But surely the syllabuses are the same. What you're teaching, the 2 + 2 = 4, 2 + 2 = 4. It's the same thing.
But there could be a number of things here. Now, my dad we always bring this up actually, because when I went to primary school, my maths teacher was also the basketball teacher. He wasn't even a qualified maths teacher.
Yeah.
So could you teach somebody like Key Stage 3? Yes, probably. You just need to be a teacher and not touch children. God, that's
Which is
so
hard.
rude.
No.
That's fucking rude. I don't know why I said that.
If there's anybody, we're just joking.
If there's anybody that's a teacher, we're just joking.
We are
I appreciate teachers have got a
No.
really huge, and in a comprehensive school, you're
Can
dealing
you just
with.
imagine being a teacher for a second? How draining
We are a
that
teacher.
would be.
We
No,
are.
but like to 30
to children, yeah,
to
like
30 individuals, it's so difficult.
the difference is the size of class. So, in private school, you won't have a class of 30 people.
No, I've got a lot of respect for teachers.
So,
But it's just,
but is it harder to be a teacher? Now, I don't know because I'm not a teacher in a private school, in a
They
secondary
also
school.
get lots of holidays, which I'm also quite for as
Yeah,
well.
but they've also got demands. And in a comprehensive school, the statistics are that obviously people in not... Most of the time, if you're in a private school and you've got special needs to a degree, so if you're maybe very dyslexic, so like what I was, or I was very dyspraxic and all of that, I got extra time, I got extra tutors, I got extra all of this. You know, the problem is that nobody necessarily has that to channel into in a comprehensive because of the funding. So...
Do teachers
kids
get
are
paid
dealing with
more-
really bad, like really strong, like behavioural issues, and the teachers have got to deal with this, and they're
Do
not
teachers
necessarily.
get paid more at a
Yeah,
private
I would
school?
assume so. I mean,
than
I
a
don't
public
actually know the
school?
wages, but yes, I'm assuming so. I might be wrong. Somebody could correct me on that, but I would
It's
assume
quite a fulfilling job, I would imagine, teachers.
when you're called a cunt and that you're ugly or something. I
Yeah,
remember,
but I've
like,
got a
what
lot of fond memories of some of our teachers at high school.
I have to say I've got mixed on mine. I do think that some teachers, and this is what's happened with education, it's almost not so desirable. And I'm really for like educating people.
Yeah.
Like I really am, but I also understand that it's fucking
It's
boring.
hard.
The syllabus
it's
is so
it's
old.
It's a hard job. Like growing up, we used to take pride in trying to make some of the teachers cry.
Yeah, but you were at a boys' school, do you know what I
I
mean?
know. It was like a zoo.
Like, and some teachers really disliked me. Like, really disliked me. I'm very
yeah.
certain of it.
One
Like,
teacher slapped one of my mates. She hated him, and she
yeah, but it's
just
different.
waited
In
for
Zimbabwe,
the...
you could like get hit by a cane until like 2020. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, in the UK, you couldn't even touch your child without
No,
fucking
which
being.
is
Well, you
which
can,
is
but.
you know not a necessarily.
Well, does it teach rules to people when they get? Not saying physical violence is the answer, but to boys potentially it is. Do you think that how many people have fucking piped up over social media that would deserve to be punched in the face? Never do because they're never reprimanded. You know, that's what's happened. Is that
six
all
of
these,
the best.
you know, you could have like a 14-year-old trolling you now, and you know, if you said that to anyone's face, you'd be dead. Not that it's a good thing, but you'd be like.
It happened at school where somebody stole somebody's phone and then messaged a girl just horrific stuff, like really bad. She obviously then showed the text message to her people, her parents. The parents complained to the school. The school got in contact with our school. People then found out who it was, and those dudes got beaten.
Yeah, this is the thing. Like, I do think for guys, like, you need to. It's different for women. I don't think you should be hitting females because females have got
obviously
way
not.
more different complex emotions to boys.
No, of course
but
not.
I genuinely think the behaviour and how the upbringing of children these days has fucking slid dramatically. It's almost like we have to give in to little Timmy at every point, you know. And that then, and we've had this conversation actually with one of our other neighbours, how much it then you do behave like that when you get older. It starts to become more and more obvious.
Yeah.
And we were speaking about the African side of things.
Yeah, especially in South Africa.
No, and in Zimbabwe, Mark. Like
Yeah,
when you're, how do I say this without it coming across like Zimbabwe? Well, should we say South Africa?
Sub-Saharan Africa have, due to their colonial past, have different ways of relationships between individuals.
Well done. You've obviously clearly been trained to say that, like in a very good way, which means that normally you have, or if you are white in Africa, people effectively look up to you as the fact that you've got something or that you can give something. Okay, and this is just genuinely how the culture runs there. Okay, and that's because, not saying that
That's the
colonialism was
assumption,
good, do you know what I mean, in any way, shape or form, but that's where it's come from. It's the fact of people having control
Well, it
and the other
was-
people working for those that were in control.
Yeah, much like South Africa and Zimbabwe, there were points in time where people that were a minority were in power and they accumulated a lot of wealth statistically whilst they utilized
Yes.
the indigenous population to their betterment. So there was always an assumption, because of that colonial structure, that one group of individuals was always well off, and which to a certain degree was
Yeah, for years it was.
it was the case. Like, if you were in South Africa, most people of color lived in a township, and most people of a Caucasian background lived in suburbs.
Now,
and there
has that
was a
changed?
massive
Yes.
discrepancy within the haves and the have-nots.
Has it changed? Yes.
Yes,
What I'm
of
trying to
course.
talk about in the sense of Mark's upbringing, for example, is that like you used to have workers that used to live at the house. Okay.
Yeah.
Mark gets really. You can tell you're going red over this, but it's just the way that
No,
Africa.
no,
it's just the way that it. So Mark had, and the house. I guess you could say a house boy. Like, I don't know. It fucking
No,
sounds
because
really.
that's
the-
very derogatory to say house boy, but the colloquial term that we do use on a day-to-day basis would be a garden boy or a house boy, which a lot of people obviously feel to be very derogatory, and it is derogatory to obviously call someone who's a grown man a boy. Do you
Oh,
know what I mean?
100%. Like, I find it horrific. But it's not to say that your parents treated them ridiculously well. But there are obviously, I'm not saying that doesn't eradicate the
I
whole
guess
history.
everything has context, because you're talking about an individual, a gentleman or a woman who was born in rural Zimbabwe. Now, we're not talking, like Surrey, or we're talking about people that essentially, up until very recently, lived in a mud hut.
Yeah.
That was in the middle of
And still do.
Kwamusha, and still do, with no running water or electricity. So the idea of coming and moving to the capital, Harare, and working for people that supply you with food, supply you with accommodation, and pay you, and then give you bonuses on top of that, plus your medical and so on and so forth, is not essentially a bad idea, because then you then take the money, you then send it back to the tribal trust lands.
Yeah, and
that then looks
I
after-
think it's like, it's, when you live in somewhere like South Africa, like a lot of the people working are also Zimbabwean. They take, they earn the money and they send it back to their families, and that's honestly how a lot of economies
like-
do run. It's
not
like we're a service
you
provider.
You're waking up and you're whipping somebody into, do you know what I mean? There is a level of respect and gratitude, and the bond. Having grown up, there are a lot of guys that I know, and Zimbabweans, that have the utmost respect and a huge loving bond with
like
the
their
people that
nannies or
raised
their
them.
Shona or
One of my best friends growing up, his name's Daniel. He had Bridgie, and this lady was of Shona descent. She started working for the family. When I was like 10 years old, she was 90. By the time we were 30, she must have been over 100 years old. She had worked for the family for over 40 years, like helping the family, raising the baby, looking after the kids. She had been there. She cooked food for us. She was like a granny.
Yeah, but going off to why we were actually talking about this though, but when you were growing up, for example, your, let's just say, like, houseboy Alexia used to refer to you as little boss, didn't he?
Yeah.
Because your father was the boss, and you were,
Yeah,
you were the male of the family and a son, you were immediately a little boss. Now, what I mean by this is that then effectively forms in some people's brains, do not get me wrong, it's not everybody, that they are entitled in some way or another.
Yeah, of course.
So when you take a South African, maybe a South African young male these days, like a white South African young male, out of South Africa into a country like the UK or whatever, they have a sense of entitlement, which you can never mimic in the UK. Because even if you've got a cleaner in the UK, it's very rare to get a full-time housekeeper in the UK. Like you really do need to be making some fucking dollar bills to be having a full-time housekeeper, a full-time nanny. You know what I mean? You'd need to be of probably the 1% that can afford it. So yes, you might have somebody come and clean for you, but that relationship was just technically, you still had the respect for them, you cleaned your room before they came and all of these things, but there wasn't that entitlement placed upon you. And I do see it a lot with like African males.
Yeah,
that, like,
I think you'd want to be more saying that, because like there are, like, we had Matt come and stay with us recently, and he was talking about, there's so many people that have been and have helped us grow up, that there is so much more of they become like an extended part of your family to a certain degree. And then there's sometimes the South Africans who are obviously Dutch descendants, who are a lot more racist. That's going to be the brutal.
Yeah, do you not remember how our neighbour used to speak to their fucking maid, like screamed at them, I just am just so like. I probably went the complete opposite, where I probably in a way overdid it, because I just felt like
it was
so
very uncomfortable, and like the way he spoke to the guys. The way he spoke to the guys that came and cleaned our garden every once in a while, and
like they were a piece of shit, like it was horrific.
It was super racist.
But there's one thing you'll never get past me: if somebody speaks like that to somebody in my fucking, like, I will say something. I used to do it with clients. Used to speak to their, like, what they would describe as servants, like shit, and I used to tell them, I was like, if you dare speak to me or anybody around me, you know what I mean, like when I'm like, this is not going to happen, like I won't fucking deal with you as a client.
There needs to be, like I said, they become, as much as people like to accept it or not, they become extended part of your family. Where before Alexia, there was a guy called William who bonded with my mother, like you cannot believe, worked with us for a couple of years. He sadly passed away due to HIV, and my mother sobbed for weeks.
Yeah, and it's crazy. There's so much story behind everything, and the problem is that what you see out there now is just like it's like a bullet point. That's the only way I can describe it. It's a bullet point of thing, and like there is everything is so complex in that kind of way.
Nothing's black and white. Everything's a shade of grey at the end of the day.
50 Shades. 50
yeah,
shades
and I guess
grey.
it's different upbringings, different circumstances, different
But
cultures.
going back to, like, I do think that if you are privately educated, that you have got more of going back to alcohol quickly, you've got more accessibility to it, 150%.
Yeah, you've
like
got disposable income.
Disposable income, pocket monies, do you know what I mean, that are much more than what your average pocket money would be. People getting into things because it's cool, or having the availability of it.
What was your
parents going on holiday, free house? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
what was the general consensus with regards to alcohol around not only your parents but the other parents of your generation or year at school? What was their general outlook on alcohol consumption between the ages of like 13 to 18?
I would say that everybody always knew that there were certain parents that were more liberal than others. I think my parents had no idea about a teenager until they had me. I would definitely say
how
that.
how else would they have known that without having
Well,
had
I call it
children?
experience. Do you know what I mean? All of their experiences have made
But
them
you
who
and your
they
sister
are.
are quite close in age, so it's quite difficult to
I think
like.
that they thought, now I'm not going to say, but I think a lot of parents think this as well, that like when you've had one, not to say that they don't think their children are different, that they're almost going to slightly be like the other. Like they're just a hope that they won't be pushed to those fucking maximal limits. Like, and I definitely pushed my parents into thinking and having to deal with a lot of things. Was some of that linked to how they behaved with me? Yes, definitely. But what their consensus was, like, I
Like I
tried like
guess
alcohol when, you know, my godparents, like they had a place in France. It sounds so pretentious. They had a place in France, you know. We used to go, and like, you know,
oh
obviously we
my
go to Saint
gosh.
Tropez on the trip, like, you know what I mean?
Oh
Like, how
my gosh,
country do I
listen to
sound? I
you.
know, fuck. But
And you
I'm
ended
not.
up with a dirty African like me.
Well, you speak. Fuck off. Do you know what I mean, Mark? Honestly, you speak like you didn't even have drinking water for like your whole life.
We didn't have, we used to have a borehole.
No, God. Do you know what I mean? Don't make me feel even worse. I had I had bottled Evian. Do you know
We've
what I mean?
had
On
such a
different upbringing.
contrasting upbringing.
Yeah, but I would still say the morals of our parents are probably quite similar.
No, they're very similar.
Like I would say that my parents, like my mum and dad, like never like swore in front of me. Like never, like I learned those swear words from my godfather actually, who was like a lawyer, a top lawyer at Goldman Sachs. So like no wonder he swore all the fucking time because like literally why would you not? Like
Yeah,
your job's
he's-
fucking stressful, you know.
a
And so
lot of
literally he
swearing.
taught me the word fuck, and ever since the day that I learned fuck and we were on here we go, I was on a sailing boat. How much of a cunt do I want to sound like right now? On a sailing boat around the Caribbean, crying, I'm dying inside right now. And like the mast of the sailboat
Oh my.
whacked James over the
Sorry, I
head. I'm
wouldn't
sorry,
know.
my
I've never
godfather. I
been
sound
on-
like such a prick. Yeah, I
sorry,
know I
I've never
sound
been
like.
on a boat in my entire life.
Shut the fuck up. You on the Lake Kariba. Don't even give me this shit, okay? Just because you had nowhere to sail in Zimbabwe, otherwise there'd be pirates all off the fucking shore.
Could you imagine?
But anyway, I did used to sail as a child. I learned how
Matt
to
Rivera
sail.
sailed
Yeah, I
with
know, and it's
women.
not to say it's a pretentious fucking, but it is
Yeah,
probably quite pretentious.
that
But I was
was-
sailing round the Caribbean, BVI's actually to be
Okay,
precise,
sorry.
and the mast whacked James around the head, and like obviously fuck was the first word that came out, and since that word came out, I've not clearly stopped saying it. But
Yeah.
my parents, and it said to alcohol, like. I think there was lessons. Do you know what I mean? You need to learn that, like, if you drink too much, you're going to feel like shit. And when you're projectile vomiting after pouring, like, a whole bottle of vodka into a Caribbean
Yeah.
twist, like, you'll
Yeah.
learn from that.
Yeah.
Not to say you don't just test it again and again just to check
Yeah, a
the
couple more
waters are
times.
still, like, a couple more times. But no, they definitely didn't encourage me to drink. They did definitely allow me to have, like, Willy straws and Smirnoff ices and, like...
They did.
But unfortunately... No, they did
did.
allow me. When I got
What
older, they
time?
allowed
What
me to
time?
drink quite a lot.
What time? What age?
I'd probably say from the ages of like 16 to 18. Well, I wasn't even at home at 18, but like it.
Chris and Jane, come on.
Please don't say their name just in case it affects them.
Come on. Come on. 16. Willie drinks
What the
and
fuck were you
Smirnoff
doing at
Ices.
16? Having a wank to HM in fucking Harare? Do you know what I mean? What were you
Why
doing?
does everything
Why are you
have to
judging?
revolve around wanking?
I don't know, because you clearly. That's not. When would your parents allow?
They never encouraged us to drink ever. Never.
Ever?
Not in front of
Crazy,
me.
isn't it?
Nothing. Not
There is a
drop.
happy medium, in my opinion, where like when you
No, obviously,
reserve somebody
then
too much
you,
from
like I
it.
said, you obviously everyone's got different parents with different standards, and then you just find the person whose parents are more liberal. Then everyone spends the night, and then you just you go hell for leather. You always end up vomiting somewhere.
Yeah, and then your parents are like, I told
Yeah.
you so. There's
Do you know
so
what I
many
mean?
times it's like, I
So-
told you so. And
But
you're like, shut
my
up.
parents were like, no ways, no.
But I also think it's because you'd also dealt with family members that had gone through like
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
a huge amount of alcohol
Yeah.
misuse that I think it's almost just like off-putting. But then the
Yeah.
rest of your family outside of that.
The environment had to reflect that none of, with people dealing with what they were dealing with, the environment reflected no consumption whatsoever. My dad hardly ever drank, if anything.
Yeah, I think I've seen your dad drink like 2 beers.
Yeah,
Right.
I think he
Your
hardly
mum,
drinks.
when she has a vodka.
Oh jeez,
Oh,
probably
jeez,
it's
yeah.
best that she gets very chatty. Let's just
Chatty Cathy, yeah. No, it's not
She
Cathy,
falls
it's
over a
Carol.
lot.
But I do think that none of our families enticed it, I don't think,
No,
like in any way.
no,
What
which I'm very
leads-
grateful for.
What leads to
be fair.
misuse is I think I was one of those people that I was told, if I was told not to do something, I did it. And
Yeah,
and that definitely didn't play in my favour sometimes.
but I guess you've learned though. I
Oh
guess
my God. And I learned at quite a young
reflection.
age as well.
Yeah, I'd rather, the first time I
Yeah.
drank was 13, drank 3/4 of a bottle neat, and then just, had a really rough time after that. And a load of us got in trouble because we did it in public, and then we brought bad reputation towards the school. So then not only did we have to deal with the consequences, somebody had to have their stomach pumped, and then we got beaten at school.
Better than taking ketamine.
So that kind of put us off for a bit. And then around 16, 17, intermittently, but, drinking has been...
I think if you were like brought up a little bit more around girls and that whole element of like house parties and like fingering on a dance floor and like doing all that weird shit with like...
Yeah, I guess
Do you know the sad reality is the parents that were most willing for their children to drink were alcoholics. And I'm not lying about that. Like,
just happy to have someone
like
to
severe
drink with them,
alcoholics.
do you know what I mean?
Like the mum would be
it
in and
is
out of the
true.
Priory or like some
Yeah.
like San Fran rehab
Divorced
clinic.
dad.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm not joking. Like divorced normally, like, and it was always the mum or the dad that
Yeah.
solely, and they would provide alcohol for all the children that's parents wouldn't accept
the
it.
worst one was come down to the work bar on a Friday afternoon where there was free drinks, and you go down because like every drinking is quite a big part of the Zimbabwean culture, where on like Friday you stop midday and then you go to the work bar or the local beer hole. And you,
But that's also a problem, actually, bringing up the
Sports club.
corporate side of like alcohol, is the fact
yeah.
that American companies statistically are getting better at this, where they place their corporate funding and like, I guess, money budget, you could say, towards wellness rather than fucking up wellness.
Not
Now
really,
the British,
because they still invite everybody down to, if all the big banks invited everybody down to Miami and they had like Beyonce sing, and I'm sure
Mark,
people
you
got
literally
lit.
talk about one event a year. Statistically, corporate companies in the US promote wellness far more than a UK company.
Yeah, I'm saying that, yeah,
And
they do.
the UK companies, now I've worked in like real estate, so estate agency, I've worked in recruitment, like fuck, do you know what I mean? I hated all of them.
the
But
staff
what
parties.
was the worst thing is that when I worked in a estate
Oh, my
agency,
days.
I would drink every single day. Like it was bottles of
Yeah,
wine,
no,
it was
that's
going to the
just-
pub,
that's-
it was like out for the meeting, like the end of meeting, like drinks, it was this, and everything was alcohol related.
But why though? I just don't. Why is that the case? Though? Is
Because
that
it's like,
age related, or is that just?
Yeah, because like you've got fucking like Edwardian snorting cocaine in the toilets as an estate agent, especially if you're working for a London, like most of those London, like the prime real estate ones tend to be full of complete twats. Do you know what I mean? We know this.
Yeah, we know this.
Like if you're a lettings agent or a sales agent, sometimes you are just a complete bellend. And it's, I know I've worked alongside them. Like Edwardian snorts cocaine in the toilet. Edwardian then goes, to the pub down, in Gloucester Road,
Theodore,
for the
down
lads.
to the Fiend in Chelsea.
Let's pick up from some person in a Mercedes and let's carry on fucking drinking. Do you know what I mean? And it's just, it's so, I was so ill
His
when I
name was
worked there. 'cause-
Hugo.
Hugo. Yeah.
Hugo.
I do like the name Hugo.
Hugo's
but
a good
it's-
name,
but
but
you
every
know,
Hugo that I've met has been a trustafarian with a carpet shop somewhere in Notting Hill that just
probably
shovels.
wearing like a fleece gilet and a corduroy, do you know what I mean? And
Yeah,
a pair of
right.
sailing shoes.
Yeah,
Like
exactly,
literally that.
exactly.
And like just to make sure they've got the signet ring
Yeah,
on their
you've got
finger.
to have the signet
So
ring
the
and
crest
just are
and the
absolute creatures.
Oh yeah, but they behave like
Oh, yeah.
they're worse than
They are.
well, I don't know.
they
I
are.
don't go out in other places like Weatherspoons and stuff, but I'm sure they but you know, like I think when you look at the
hilarious.
UK, people, I'm not going to lie, looking at the UK, I can understand like when you're in a desperate need coming to a
Yeah.
Western country. Well, I can't understand it because I've never been in it. I'm not going to pretend that I'm relatable on that, but I can see the profitability in the sense of lifestyle and quality of life
Yeah.
being in a place like this.
Yeah.
However, number one, why doesn't we talk about it's really expensive to live in the UK? It's not going to be
It's always
glorified
been
when you come.
expensive to live in the UK, though. It's always
Yeah,
been
but
bit
sometimes it was a bit
expensive.
more manageable. I guess now it's just like, what the
No,
fuck?
it's just the.
But if you look at the UK, it's
I mean,
atrocious.
we've always looked at the. Being as a person who doesn't come from the UK, we've always looked at the UK to be a place that is more expensive than the rest of the world.
But it was where everybody wanted to go and like, get a job and work.
There are some not downfalls to the UK, but having lived outside of the UK is not bad. It's great. It's just everybody's narrative reflects the mainstream media, and that's you turn it on and it's just doom and gloom. But the reality is like, would you rather live in the UK or live in America where people just literally carry on guns and shoot each other?
Okay,
know
I get
statistically-
that, but like Americans would probably disagree with that because there's a lot of part of America that people love, and
Yeah, but
would you rather that? No, of course. Like I'm sure you'd much prefer to be in the UK, but let's
then
not
there's-
lie.
Okay, so then you go Europe.
The UK crime is ridiculous at the moment. And that's because they've removed every kind of fucking youth centre. They've removed, and there's not enough funding.
So is the crime in America. Do you know what I mean? Like places like
so
San Diego.
big though, America.
Yeah, but all those places have got, tens of thousands of people in homeless
I know, it's
camps
horrific.
and caravans.
But what's sold is still the sold that this American dream. If you went across to
No,
LA
I
right
get
now, you'd be
that.
begged off of like probably somebody that's lost all their money and is
feel
now
like a
addicted
lot
to
of
drugs.
people. I feel like a lot of people. There's a lot of a negative narrative around the UK, and the thing is, the UK have obviously got a very high standard, and which is a good thing, and people hold everybody up to a high standard to a certain degree. Obviously, there's corruption.
Absolutely,
But there's
do
corruption.
not agree with that.
There's corruption everywhere.
Mark, I don't agree that people hold themselves
They
to a
do.
high standard in the UK.
They do. Like,
Mark,
that
have you
dude.
met
That dude was.
the half of the UK. No.
No, have you met half of the
I've
UK?
definitely come across them in places that I haven't repeated going to. Like, I'm not going to lie, I wouldn't say that people are held to the highest standard here. I think
they are to a certain compared to the rest of society. They are like, look at Zimbabwe; it's an absolute shit show. Look at South Africa; like those are
politically,
but
maybe, but people would say politically in America is the same. But yet you have to if you're president of America, you still can't even decide anything. Like literally, what the fuck is that? Do you know what I mean? You're the president, you can't even say yes to something.
No, but it's all but by design, But I guess.
Would I rather live in the UK other than somewhere like a very, very corrupt and very openly corrupt, somewhere like let me talk about South America, Mexico, where the government and the cartels are pretty much, and there's
Ecuador.
Places where inflation is so high you can't even No, of course, UK is 100% better.
Exactly.
Do I think that we have a huge amount of problems in the UK? Yes.
Yeah, but
do I think it's miserable and fueled
huge
by
amount of things that go incredibly well?
Massively so, and we are totally.
It's like people they sit and they say that they're striking. They're like, we're going to strike, but it's a reduced service to a certain degree. There's still shit that works. Like when people say that we're going to strike, like in Zimbabwe, like there's nothing. Do you understand? Like there's no, like when we're going to switch off the electricity and you just don't know when it's coming back on. Do you know what I mean? Like it's ridiculous things like this.
Yeah, but South Africa still deals with that. Just because Cape Town is a very privileged part of South Africa, like Johannesburg, gets turned off, and it's like, lol. Do you know what I mean? I don't know when that's going to come back on. Here's 8 hours later, maybe. Only joking. Do you know what I mean? Literally.
We don't get a lot of the UK. I think is.
No, we don't get electricity
there's so many
cuts,
positive
but we do pay
aspects
for it.
of the United Kingdom that nobody is willing to just discuss
But I
it.
would say the UK is fully responsible for the fact that, like, worldwide, seeing as there's like 65, 70 million in the UK now, 60 or 70 million, the population. And yet, like, pretty much,
It's tiny.
a
compared to
like
everywhere
literally a
else.
sixth of that are like addicted to alcohol or misuse alcohol. Like, it's pretty fucked.
Yeah.
Is
But the UK, that's a
'Cause we
small
glorify
percentage of
it.
people. 65 million people is less than most states
Yeah,
in
but 10
America.
million of them will misuse alcohol. That's a lot.
But I guess what happens if it's their choice that they want to misuse
Not,
alcohol.
it's totally your choice to misuse alcohol, and well, not necessarily always your choice. There's things that push you, but it is your choice at the end of the day. But the fact of the matter is just because you have a choice doesn't mean that you can't. It doesn't make any sense that you have a choice, but yet you can't just fucking rein it in to some degree, not allow people to.
So do you think that they should stick pictures of like dead babies and stuff on
No.
alcohol?
I just think they need to stop glorifying it so much and start actually realising that, like, if it's okay for you to misuse alcohol, but then don't go and be a strain on public environments. Like, don't go and do that, because even if you have paid your taxes all the way through your life and you're like a great citizen, you've worked really hard, you are still bringing that drain. Like, they're saying currently that the elderly are a massive strain on the NHS. Now, the elderly are sat there like, wait, but I'm 85, 90 years old. I've paid you taxes for like 90 years. Like, give me a fucking break. If I want to fall over, I'm going to fall over and you're going to come and collect me. That's what, like, my grandma would say in her head. But it's the same as, like, avidly going out and abusing yourself on, like, cocaine or heroin
I
or
guess
anything like that. It's all spoken down. Like, you've got somebody like, what was that advert that was Think Frank, the fucking creepy guy, like, in his, like, and it was all to do with drugs, Frank, the advert. But yet the Gordon's gin advert, oh, when should we meet up? Right now, ha, pink gin, woohoo. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're now just fueling the problem. So don't go and use the public health system for the misuse of things that are glorified.
I guess
and that are not.
it is a choice at the end of the day. So if you
But
know,
if we add up
falling
all the
over, being
stats-
90 years old to a certain degree and falling over is almost unavoidable, you know.
But what's not unavoidable is you
but
going
you
getting
going
rat-arsed,
and getting and
innit?
having bottles and bottles of wine.
and then falling
that is a
over
choice.
or being drink driving or killing somebody else or doing any of those
But
shit
I like
that
the
happens.
idea of pubs and things like that. I just
No,
the
I
idea
think it's all
of-
great for community, but we don't always need to stem our social circles around alcohol. That's the reality, is that if you need to have alcohol to fill a relationship, it's not a proper relationship in the first place. You can't be around each other because you're just effectively inhibiting, like, the actual part of you with something that makes you behave and think differently. And that is the reality. And you shouldn't be putting the strain. You know, if you're willingly abusing this, okay, there are the percentage that have issues, and they always say this, like, oh, there's the percentage that are really addicted to drugs, you know, in the UK, and it's really, really bad. Well, okay, let's talk about that. Literally 1/6 of the population heavily drink on a week-to-week basis, like, and yet that is still glorified. I'm so against it. I always will be, because it damages people, and you just don't see it. Like,
I mean, it's in the same category as radiation.
Like, it's pretty fucked up. And
You
it's
think
not
about
that
that,
one glass of
that's
champagne that's going to do
crazy.
it, or that one G&T when you're on holiday, it's not that, but it's that general consensus that, oh, do you know what? It's actually quite jokes. It's not jokes. Do you know what I mean? When you add up the numerical stats of the monies drained on the NHS a year,
it's got such
you are
a
talking
dramatic
like
impact.
25 billion annually. And then you're wondering why the your NHS is so drained, that you're dealing with that on top of.
But it seems that we
With diseases
hold
progressing.
we hold value in alcohol consumption because it goes.
Because we've all
as
never been
far
taught how
back
to form
as
proper relationships.
7, 8, 9, 10,000 years ago. It's the first evidence of alcohol within pottery.
And yeah, for a lot of people, it is happy things. Like, it's not looking back and going, well, that was fucking miserable and I'm sat here like a cretin. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that, like, majority of those people won't have a clue what they're doing. Like, we've sat at family barbecues where people will knock back 3-4 bottles of wine. Okay, is that normal? Or are you going to put yourself into effectively maybe having a heart attack, a stroke, and then going to the NHS in an ambulance?
I guess if you sat there and you had the same energy, but for like cigarettes, then you know what I mean, where somebody goes and drinks a bottle of wine and you smoke 2 packets of cigarettes.
My grandparents asked me the other day, did you used to smoke? I looked at them, I was like, are you fucking oblivious? Do you know what I mean? Like, yes, I did used to smoke. And their look on their face was almost like it was terrified that I'd smoked whilst they had a glass of wine in their hand.
True.
And that is bizarre, because I'm very open to say that I misused these things and I've learned from it, and it wasn't great and it did do damage to me.
The first thing you do when you sit down is they bring you some champagne. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's not bad.
Hi,
I'm
would
not...
you like a glass of class 1 carcinogenics?
Okay, people don't always think that pessimistically. Like, one glass is not going to give you cancer. Like, that is the reality. It's a constant misuse, but it's just the fact
It's not the constant misuse. The World Health Organization
just the constant misuse of having 2 drinks a day, 1 drink a day, 1 drink a week, 2 drinks a week. The point is that it's now coming out that any kind of intake is not really ideal.
No.
But it's going to take years to come to that conclusion that is effectively what's causing it.
Sure.
And
if that's even the case.
Ever it's going to happen, you know. And I just think that when it comes to your health and your well-being, like, maybe you're a woman listening to this and you're going through the menopause. Stop drinking.
I guess...
Like, it's going to make things
worse.
worse.
The thing is, people need vices. People need to escape, have some level of escapism.
We've been taught to have escapism, Mark. I know it's happened for years and years in history. Like, when you watch programs and they all had a drink and enjoyed themselves, or somebody was manically depressed and they were drinking by themselves, or, you know, I know it's been glorified in programs, in films, and this and that.
Culture in general.
But then do the maths, do you know what I mean? Just do the maths. Like, it's not helping us. Unfortunately, with this escapism, as we are searching for escapism at all points of the day now. It's not escapism at the end of the day of work or the end of the week. It's literally every hour. It's escaping on social media. It's escaping by having a cigarette. It's escaping by taking drugs. It's escaping by having too much sex. It's escaping, you know, and we're seeking that escapism because our attention spans have limited. So the whole desire is to constantly make ourselves do something or feel better or be entertained or reach for the next thing.
Do you think that's because we've moved too far away from real life?
Yes, and I think, you know, the more...
Because, like, if we were in a group of 50 people with no technology and you were hunter-gatherers, and you were just walking around, like, you all you're thinking about is shelter, food, survival.
Well, now we're thinking about Molly May's baby, fucking a boxing fight, who got killed in a car crash, somebody's missing, you're never going to be able to have children, somebody's child's got cancer, your dad's been diagnosed, you know what I mean? That's literally the brain now. It's like, let's just think of absolutely everything at once. And if we didn't have that need and social, you know, we would never be behaving like this. They say that, like, teaching children, like teenagers these days, is fucking difficult because
I could imagine.
if it's not 1 split second and you're not dancing at me, you're not entertaining me, I've got no patience for it. And that's literally shown, like, education systems.
Yeah, I can only imagine it would be so difficult because I just try and imagine myself and my peers at that young impressionable age with an iPhone or something like that would be
complete fucking
just like off. Even we were the generation where, like, kids had cell phones, like rudimentary ones, and people were always on their phones.
The Motorola, we were like the advance of the sort of the what's the word, like, smarter phone than a brick.
We had bricks.
We had bricks, like a Nokia 310 that flashed on the sides like a snake game. But that was definitely the start of, like, when I was being brought up.
Yeah, but there were
we
always
also
kids
saw the
on
iPhone.
Your phone, do you know what I mean? Where that were like, get off your phone, or who's texting, all
Why
that
if I don't remember, the
nonsense.
classes used to take our phones knowing that we wouldn't sit on it. Like before, like anything, like you would get it taken away. Like you weren't allowed your phone. And like parents only gave their phones to the children, normally at age sort of like 11 or 12 when they're walking to school by themselves. Because God fucking knows who's going to kidnap you now. Do you know what I mean? Like probably a Met police officer.
Yeah,
That's
jeez.
a sad joke. A sad fucking joke. And it's not a joke because it's actually factually correct. Not everybody, just a few that seem to have made their way around.
I was just thinking about it today when I went for a walk. I just think, like, just in general, like, there's always going to be wrong-uns in every aspect of life. Like, if you
100%,
go to like a bank, there's going to
I
be
just
some
wish people would
wrong-uns.
understand, like, and you're never going to get this.
And
like,
there's just
the
like,
effect of a woman, like, just
just some men are wrong-uns, like, but
like, let's
not
talk
to
about
say
the
that
missing
all-
case with the woman Nicola up
Yeah,
north. Is it up
yeah.
north of River Wye?
I don't know.
Who's vanished? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
geez,
nobody
yeah.
can find a trace of her yet. So, barring the fact that deep down, I don't know, I could be factually wrong, that you just know statistically
she would have been murdered
she
by a
might
man.
be murdered by a man.
Yeah, if she was to be murdered by anybody,
Anything, it's
she
a
would be
man.
murdered by a man. That's just a statistical.
And that's just horrific because I actually, since that whole case, again, ingraining things that.
But that's the thing,
it's
is like
sad
it
reality.
makes people, the general narrative is that like there is a problem
There
with
is a problem.
certain types of men.
No, Mark, because like I've spoken to so many women
there's
about
not,
this.
like-
No. Because
You can't-
I've had men sit next to me who look like they're sat in a suit going to work with a wedding ring on, touching my fucking thigh. I've had people wolf whistle
but
at me.
they're
that
wrong-uns. That's what
no,
I'm
it's not,
saying.
Mark. These are normal people. Did you not watch that program we were watching on sexual
Georgia,
abuse?
for you to just walk and touch a woman with a wedding ring on out of her not, in any circumstance is wrong. And you are a wrong-in.
But Mark, did
Just
you
'cause
not
you've got a
watch that
suit
program
on-
we were watching last
Just
night?
because you've got a suit on and you look fancy doesn't mean that
So
you're
what's
not
a wrong
wrong-un.
un? Because we've been taught as
People
women.
that just sit down and fucking grope you on the thing.
Oh, because I've asked for it, and I
Yeah,
know, do
no,
I?
that's-
I know when a
no.
man that's sitting in a suit that looks
That's
got a wedding
wrong.
ring that I trust him because I've been society put. Don't ever argue this with me because I will get into
but
an
I'm just
argument.
saying. But that's you're just making quick stereotypes based on a real life situation, which I understand. But just because they are dressed in a certain way or look a certain way doesn't mean they're not a wrong un.
Never said that. But when you're taught as a woman what is right and what is wrong, you might see the fact that if somebody's behaving erratically, or if somebody's following you home, or when somebody sits next to you on public transport,
but-
very random, who looks like they're on a way to work, who you would assume that you would feel vaguely safe around, then goes and abuses that trust, then you start to question everybody. Is that a nice situation to be in when you see in the news that women go missing? And this is not the only woman that's missing right now. There's plenty of women that are probably
sure there's
of
loads.
different races that are never highlighted in British media who are missing right now. And unfortunately, direct link is, well, that woman, for example, that they're highlighting right now was on her day-to-day fucking walking the fucking dog in the same place. And it's exactly what I do when I take the dogs for a walk by myself in exactly the same place. And of course, that is going to make you think,
Yeah,
what the
sure.
fuck? It
No,
was
I
9 in the
appreciate that.
morning. Is this going to happen to me? When I used to walk at night, I would never walk as night a woman, like as a woman. Even getting a taxi's now fucking unsafe in case they grope you. Like, you don't bloody know what's right and what's wrong. And is this the fact that
Yeah, but that's
men
all-
over the years are able to get
Some
away
men.
with this?
Some
They-
men. It's not
do you know
all
how
men,
many
Georgia.
men who are normal to a degree will send like a fucking like you're
But
fit?
well.
Do you want to see my inbox when I was not with you, Mark? Did you want to see what it was like over social media when men wanted to get into your inbox?
Okay, wait, but that so somebody just saying I think you're fit, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're a wrong un.
No, it's not necessarily that.
But
It's the constant messaging.
But
the
that's weird, and that makes you a wrong un. That doesn't make all men.
no, because men have always been told to pursue women to a certain degree, and they also know. And you make this fucking joke. No doesn't mean no. Do you know what I mean? You fucking cretin.
No,
You know what I mean? No,
because
no.
that's based off stand-up comedians.
Oh, I love the fact you've got to clarify this. So you're not a wrong one.
Yeah, I'm not wrong.
But it's I'm not going to be told by you or any fucking man how I'm meant to feel safety-wise. There have
No,
been
but a
times
normal
I've had
man is not
confidence
going to
in
go out
it.
of his way just to tell a random woman how he feels. Do you know what I mean? An average man keeps most of the shit to himself.
100%. But do you not think that the
And there's
amount
and
of
there's
people
also,
getting away
Georgia,
with
there's also
contacting
a
women?
percentage of women on this planet that are wrong-uns.
Right, we're not going to turn this on women right now
No,
because
but I'm
women have
just
been
saying-
second class for
No,
fucking
but
years,
I'm
and we're
not,
still
it's got
not at the
nothing
level.
to do with that, but I'm just saying that everybody.
No, so it's
in
the woman's
every-
problem as to why the man behaves
No, I'm
the
not
way.
saying there's other ways that women can manipulate men in different ways. or
Okay, cool. Why
manipulate
don't we just look
women.
at the stats as to who fucking gropes
But I'm
who
just
the
saying,
most?
no, it's not. It's not always about groping. It's not. It doesn't have to be
But
physical.
Mark,
it
what
could
you
be
don't
emotional.
understand
But what I'm
is
trying to
how
say
is a woman meant to
is
feel
that
safe in any
much
environment?
like there are amazing women. There are really good men out there that love and support their family
I
and
never bloody
contribute
said that
to
there
society.
wasn't. I've been brought up around men that have, but that doesn't mean that at any point in my life I haven't
I
questioned.
just think men
what.
are more, obviously, they're more physically capable.
Fuck off.
So they
Men are
pray.
pathetic half the time.
Yeah, but statistically,
No, they've
men
just
are more
got
physically
their hormones are
capable,
flying around and they think that
they
they have
prey-
control and dominance over things.
Yeah, and
That's
they
the reality.
prey on young.
No, it's not young women.
Not necessarily young,
Mark,
but
Mark, you met going out of
they
your way
are-
to a private Instagram account and messaging it in the hope that because you might be attractive. I know plenty of guys that have done this and have
No,
messaged
but they're
girls.
wrong.
Maybe it's on. It's Mark.
They're
You are
wrong
being
ones.
clearly you are an anomaly. Because when you're with a group of boys, I can fucking well assure you, a woman's pair of tits, or she got a nice ass, or did you see how
my
fit she
God,
was,
no,
would
'cause
come up
we
in
were-
conversation.
We were raised.
Okay, Mark.
have
I'm so
morals
sorry.
and-
I think I'm. Are you Amish? I'm not sure. Like, I didn't realise that you've never fucking entertained maybe like you don't understand. You'll never understand what it's like when
don't
you
know,
go
maybe.
out,
Yeah,
you
I
don't want
obviously
any
don't
attention on you,
understand, yeah.
and suddenly you've got
No,
attention
I
for just being
appreciate that.
breathing with breasts.
No, I get that. I know you do see it when you go out. The men are incessant.
But
And
it's
it's
so
creepy,
fucked up.
and it
They're
is
not all
creepy.
wrong-uns, because the builder who fucking Wolf was you wouldn't think he's a
Because,
wrong
but there's alcohol involved, and they get sometimes they get to the point
No,
where
this
they
is not
turn into
alcohol.
wrong-uns.
Somehow, some people relate to alcohol. This does not and is not the cause to how
But then
people
there's
behave.
always people who are like, oh, I need a little bit of liquid courage because I need to drink so then I can therefore go and talk to women, because if I don't have alcohol in my system or some form of dissociative substance in my body, then I'm unable to then go in action that I would never be able to go and speak to a woman when I'm sober. So there is
Totally
a
get that. I've dealt
level-
with loads of them. Hey, where did you fall from? Fucking, you know what I mean? Like, bro, like, just fuck off. It's the same as being on Tinder. But do you not think about what it's like now? The accessibility to one another is so
Yeah, it's
connected that
Yeah, it's
you've
crazy.
got apps,
It's
dating
crazy,
apps
yeah.
called. There's one called Happen. I don't know if you think, where you literally follow the paths of people. You literally, if you've crossed paths, you're going to match with them. Okay. Now, do you not think that's a problem? Okay. A man
for
thinks, do you
speed
know what?
stalking,
Oh,
yeah.
do you know what I mean? I haven't got
But
my
that's-
fucking
but
dick
that's
wet in a
what-
while.
You know, I know, but that's also you're talking about people that are. I
So
feel
the
like
percentage
also
of
got-
wrong-uns is getting higher and higher because the ability to be able to contact people
No, I
is getting
appreciate
higher and
that.
higher.
No, I
The ability
appreciate
to
that.
abuse and think that women
No, it's
want
really
you
sad.
commenting
And I
some
don't-
dick
I
emoji. with-
really don't like when you go out and you just see like a woman just trying to just enjoy herself, and then there's guys that just rub themselves on them or
It was
just
only yesterday.
talk to them, and just like there's nothing more cringe than a guy that like tries to hook up with a girl and eventually does it because he's just eroded her.
that's called fucking
just
rape.
keeps on
Do you know what I
going
mean?
on
Like, that's
and
not
on.
okay, and it's not okay to watch. And if anything, men just need to actually tell people things are not okay. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, okay, you might get punched in the face, but unfortunately, us women can't do that for you. Do you know what I mean? Like, the reality is that men will speak more for men than women will ever speak for men. And the reality is if you're not, yes, okay, our environment, I'm very grateful for. I'm grateful to have a partner that doesn't, abuse that trust. I'm grateful to having a father that's brought me up in the sense that I would always want a man. And if I ever had a child that was a boy, would want to grow up like. But the reality is that the percentage of people is getting higher and higher. And it's okay if a woman uploads a photo of herself which looks nice. It's okay for a man to tell them he's just had a wank over you, or you've done this, and that is being associated behaviours face to face as well.
I don't know.
Do you know how many women I know and girls I know who have been rubbed up on the tube, or just to get some kind of, so that they can get their little weenus just slightly fucking
I've seen
because they're never
dudes-
going to have a woman valuable enough.
I've seen men dressed in, like you said, very nice suits and stuff.
Told you exactly, that's trust.
Sniffing women's heads on the tube.
But this is the problem, is that is what we're taught, is that a nice professional man in a suit would
safe.
never, the same with a nice professional man in a police outfit would never abuse the trust of the system. And what's fucking happened?
Really
It's
sad.
a level of power then dominated onto a woman who is naturally more vulnerable.
Do you
And
think
God
that comes down
forbid-
to testosterone?
I just think it's also about the fact that we're so disassociated with how humans actually behave currently. Like, it's so weird. Like, we shouldn't be forming all of our dating relationships off of apps. We shouldn't be doing we should be doing.
But there's a lot of
some
people
kind of
now that that would disagree with you, because there's so many people that have been married, especially recently, that have all met on Tinder or some form of dating app where they've started dating.
Yeah, I know a couple of
Creates a
people
nice
of my
relationship,
friends.
but then there's also, with dating apps, it allows for more social, and movement with regards to,
And like catfishing and living a life that you don't live.
back in the
and-
day, like, it was all pretty, not arranged, but like, back in the day, pretty arranged. What does your family do? What does your family do? It was very like,
Wait, you talking about on
business
like
deal.
Tinder? Don't think my
no, I'm
conversations
talking
were like that on
about,
Tinder.
I'm talking about 100 years ago. Everything was very,
Well, normally you'd have an arranged marriage.
like an
sometimes.
arranged marriage. What does your family do? What does your family do? Friends and family.
Well, like
But
my
with
grandparents got married because of
media,
religion.
you can get to meet people from different backgrounds, ethnicities.
Well, to be honest with you, like, yes,
da.
like I feel like we've become more interconnected with different races and cultures to what we ever would have been. Like, if you're, but back in the day, like if you look at my grandparents, if you were Jewish in the same Jewish circle, you would likely meet your husband
Sure.
within that Jewish circle and then marry. That's how it happened. Now, I'm not saying that is a happy marriage to any degree. Like, that doesn't, just because somebody's married for years doesn't mean it's necessarily been always happy.
Do you not think that we've always just had these problems, but the only difference is now we've been able to communicate with them? Because back in the day, I'm sure people would have had the same types of grievances we have today, minus things like social media and stuff like that. But, it's just, it seems like it's getting worse, but the reality is statistically, it's just the one of the safest periods to be alive in terms of life expectancy.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that.
It's just that it was harder for people to understand what people in, the other side of the world were feeling.
Well, think
because
about it. So many things were so taboo until literally like 2-3 years ago. So
were
think
they,
about like
though? Because people
menopause,
were still
menstrual
doing
cycle.
it.
No,
Oh,
fuck
yes.
off.
Oh, yeah, that's true,
Menopause,
yeah.
menstrual cycle,
That is, yeah, that is
hormones,
crazy.
like the way your vagina looks, like your boobs are different sizes. All of that shit was so taboo. Like, my grandma would never fucking speak about that shit.
But it doesn't, just because they didn't talk about it doesn't mean that they weren't doing
Oh,
it.
100% we went through it. But is it okay to talk about and share about it now? 100%. We've got the ability to have
But
more of a voice.
I feel like is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I'd say for some of it's quite good, bringing awareness that other people are it is a normal phase of life. Like, I like the highlight of people like talking about menopause and menstrual cycles because it means that a woman has more control over that time of her life, and the phase feels more controllable, and that can entice and make you feel more empowered as a woman when you understand it.
Well,
Do I think we need to be tit for tat? Like, I've experienced that, you've experienced this. No, I've experienced that, you're wrong. No, I think that's when it comes too much, and that's where it is now. But I do agree that between, I don't really think anything should be mass public always. I think it's always going to bring too many different opinions. But in the sense of health, I think it's definitely opened up narratives that we would never have seen like fucking 15 years ago, 20 years ago. Never would have seen
which
it.
I guess is not a bad thing.
I still think that now, like, even my grandmother, if I was like, oh yeah, like my period, I'm on my period, or when did you go through menopause? Like, fuck, Jesus, that would be like a heart attack waiting to happen.
Yeah, but this is the thing, is everyone thinks that the current, civilization that we live in has been around forever and ever. But like, if you look at it generationally, if you go back 3 or 4 generations, which is like 3 or 4 people ago, we're talking about living, you cut your finger, get a paper cut and die because there's no such thing as penicillin.
Yeah, like my dad's a prime example of that. It was only when he got diagnosed with Hodgkinson's at age 21, he was they still had to cut him open through his stomach to just check that it hadn't spread to other organs without even doing now you can do a scan, you know what I mean? You don't have to be cut open.
And 4 years prior to that, they didn't even have the cure for that. So if he had, that timeline had shifted, he would have
probably died. Yeah. Which is it's insane. Like, and I'm so admirable of like medicine and the way it develops. Like, I'm massively involved with that. My family is medical.
I just think I think that our general consciousness towards reality is driven by a certain narrative, and whatever the narrative is how people feel, and it's just constantly negative. And it's people, it's not based on facts anymore, it's based on people's opinions, and everything is, just
I think you'll never come across more self-help professionals now than you ever will in your life. I mean?
It's
and that says something.
Like, the weird thing is, like, we know that if we wanted to blow up on Instagram, we could just start like attacking other people in the fitness industry and criticizing them and going viral. I think it would.
Why would you fucking do that? Why
people
do you
love
to be a cunt?
No, but I'm just saying. I'm not saying I want to do that, but it's just sad knowing that is the currency of today, which is like.
No, the currency is just showing off to other people.
It's like showing off was one thing, but also capitalizing on a consistent negative narrative or focusing on things that are.
I don't think the narrative's ever been like positive though. Like, the reality is that whatever we've done to the world is making it worse. So whether that's climate, whether that's environment, whether it's whatever, like, we're making it worse. And scientists have been screaming at us for fucking years to slow fucking down and to not do it. And everybody's like, lol, fuck off, like they do with alcohol abuse. Lol, I'll still have a drink.
That is so true.
And now we've ended up in the situation that we are, where people are like, oh dear, do you know what I mean? Like, oh dear.
Encapsulates it so well. That is so true, because like everyone knows it's getting bad, and like we're not really doing anything about it.
No, and then like unfortunately, it's like a small demographic of people who come across slightly weird to the average, who will sit on the floor in a shopping mall with climate change, like, and try and hand you a leaflet like some Jesus preacher. Like, we were only in Guildford on Saturday. There was, what was it? The afterlife preacher on the street with the books selling. Then we had the climate change man shove a leaflet, which was paper. Shouldn't be fucking shoving a leaflet.
The guy in Guildford who was blasting on a stereo, something to do with like the Illuminati, Donald Trump and Hitler.
Yeah, and you're just like, right, that's a load of fucking nonsense. How have you even got a stand in the middle of Guildford High Street? Like, number one. Yeah. And then you go into the shopping centre. You've got people sat on the floor, probably stuck themselves somewhere because of climate change, shoving a leaflet, trying to be enthusiastic about the climate, but just never really going to get there, are they?
Too
Because they do
enthusiastic.
things that piss people off, like the people that like
Yeah.
stick themselves to the road and then ambulances can't get past and their nan dies or something. Like people just don't like it. Like you
But I
can't bring
guess
in
from
blocks.
from their point of view,
They're bringing awareness, 100%.
You've got to do something drastic because we are being lied to. I think
Okay,
that's the
fucking,
best
you
way.
might have been part of the Illuminati fucking
No, we are
scam.
generally. Let's be honest with
Oh,
us.
yeah, but we've been lied to
I know,
for
I know
years. We never
I
get
know
the
we're
true
doing
story.
our best with regards to different initiatives and stuff like that. But do you honestly think that we are not slowly killing the environment due to our overall consumerism?
Bruv, the polar bears were telling you that fucking 20 years ago, and
Yeah,
they're
but
floating
people are
on one block of
there
ice.
there is a narrative that we're trying our best and blah blah blah. But the reality
We're
is we're still
not.
pumping shit into rivers. We're still chopping trees down, and that's not going to stop anytime soon. I
And
don't
we're
think.
only ever excelling the speed that we can get things done. Do you know what I
Because
mean?
I
Which is
guess
only going to have an
if
impact.
I know it's so warped.
This is what I say. Like sometimes you just need to, like, if you want to, like, human civilization to survive in the most conducive way, where we just not end up in this weird part of life, where then you need to slow down just a little bit to realize that humans are really dumb right now. We're like the dumbest out of all the things around
Yeah,
us.
we haven't
And that's the
evolved
reality, is
yet.
that we're all too dumb to realize this, what's going on, because the people that are above that, or the technologies that are above that, and it's on another level now, and it's almost worrying, because you're like, what the fuck? Like, this is really weird. Like, are we going to be in a place where we're covered in robots and we're the dumb ones? But is that because we've done that to ourselves? Yes.
It's kind of yeah.
Yes.
But that's what we seem to be barreling.
Now you want to
towards.
be an influencer. You don't want to be a fucking doctor. Oh my God, what the fuck? 7 years of studying? No, thank you. Oh my God, hard work until the age of 32 and then I can just go into hospital. No, thank you.
Yeah, like
Do you know what I mean? My
remember when
grandfather earned...
your grandfather was saying how much of a grind it was.
Like, and he was obviously, he's very, very, very high up. He was very, very high up in the medical industry. But to get there,
He was working.
he
for
was
free.
at age, what, 35?
The guy was
didn't
working
even take a
for
wage
free
for,
just
yeah,
for experience.
just for experience. That says something. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
That's a different
And
generation.
so going back to the whole sort of hard
But I
working
guess
ethic.
that being said, just like you could buy a house for like £4 back then.
Okay, the cost of living is slightly different, and I know it makes it a lot more different now that the fact that salaries haven't risen, everybody's miserable about it. But the side note is that hard work still does get you places, and hard work is what we need as humans. We need to push ourselves. We need to challenge ourselves, because otherwise we end up like fucking sponges.
We do.
And
the
we are
thing.
sponges
that.
right
Everybody
now.
needs. This is the thing. Everybody needs, to have a greater, not a greater purpose, like I sound woo woo, but everyone needs a
Focal
goal
point, yeah.
or something to base their life around. Like once you have a goal or something to work towards, then you can build a schedule around these goals, and it just gives your life a level of fulfillment and purpose. Like once you achieve something, you feel really good about yourself.
Yeah, and that
that's-
doesn't need to be like by sedating yourself with alcohol or by like achieving something, which means you then resort to these things. But I do think like most people would probably potentially like have children to like see the life through their child's eyes instead of like their own eyes, just to see if they
That's
live
true.
again. Do you know what I mean? In effectively
Do
a
you
different
think?
way.
Do you think we feel the way that we feel and we think the way that we think because we don't have children, and that if we had children, we wouldn't even probably think about these things because you'd be so preoccupied by raising a child?
I think my inquisitive, number one, I have to know everything about everybody at all points of my life.
You literally, Georgia just goes in and just asks people some really.
Fuck
Not
off, I'm
deep.
not that weird.
No,
I need to
not-
know you
no,
and then
but
I get
you-
into it. Bruv, I therapize people all the time.
No,
It's
but
exactly
you,
right.
you walk away from like meeting somebody and you know
Everything.
literally everything about them.
And it's not because I'm going to go and tell anybody. I just want to know so I know who I'm dealing with. And that's just, in fact, it really helps me with my job. And it's only going to help me further knowing more about people and how they work. But I also think it's the fact that we deal with people. You know, we provide and we deal with micromanage like people's mental health on a day-to-day basis. So we're not only just seeing our vision on things, we're seeing other people's visions on things all the time. I was only in the gym earlier where one of the guys who's a PT was like, Do you ever find that like some like your really wealthy clients, they think like you relate to each other? Like, oh, which car should I get, the Bentley or the Aston Martin? You're sat there like, I'm in a Ford, like shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? Like literally, I don't even know. I've never even driven an Aston Martin. I wouldn't know the difference between a, you know. But it's that whole thing that we're not the same, and that's the beauty of life. We're not the same individual. But we need to start, and we need to start forming life and take a scaling back just a little bit. Like, unfortunately, we can't be entertained the whole bloody time.
Yeah, but do you not think that if we had children, you wouldn't need to be entertained? Because people that have children basically are helicopter parents these days, where they just hover over and you just stare at them all day.
Well, I mean, like, yeah, like your brother just stares at the children, just hopes that one of them doesn't just
but
jump
when we
off
went
somewhere.
when we went to that thing, that's all people do. It's just everybody.
Paid £160 to stand in a farm of screaming children. I thought I was going to feed animals. That's the only thing I was going to put up. Instead, I stood in a soft play, a bacteria-ridden soft play. Horrible place. I mean, I love children. I don't at all. Do you know what I mean? But anybody, and I know parents for sure, my clients who have children, say that soft play is the biggest bacteria growth they will ever come across. It's just steamy and infectious. Yeah. But, you know, I just don't... I can maybe you'll probably be listening to this podcast and I'll be like, guys, I'm pregnant. Fuck off. Like, that's not going to happen for like a number of years. But I don't know. I don't really want to like think like what it's like to have children, because I just don't want them right now. So I'm just going to live my life the way that...
We've got 3 babies.
We've got 3 fucking fur babies, and that's enough to manage for now.
I'd love to get another kitten.
No, not at the moment, Mark. Let's be responsible. Anyway. That was our very interesting alcohol/conspiracy theory.
So what's the conclusion?
My conclusion would be we totally and utterly understand why alcohol is part of people's lives. We understand the enjoyment factor, the social side, the confidence side. But just look at the stats and look at what it does to our health worldwide as a nation of people, and realize that actually, like, this is probably not something that we should be actively including to our day-to-day lives. And as I said, just like a box of cigarettes isn't going to kill you or get you cancer, the same as a glass of wine's not going to give you cancer. Do you know what I mean? It's just the fact that, like, that detrimental effect, that it is glorified. If you go in and you've had too much to drink, people are going to go, oh, God, so funny, legend. Hope you had a good night. Good night last night.
Dude, I got so pissed last night.
Like, it's not something that we should be necessarily encouraging. And for those that are thinking, oh, do you know what? I don't really get on with alcohol right now. We can say from both of our sides that life is actually almost better. It's clearer. You've got more clarity. You're not numbing yourself all the bloody time.
Yeah, but I guess like you said, it does impact your relationship with friends. You know, your relationships do change.
And I think, again, like everything, like environment is key.
Because most people like to go out on Friday, Saturday, whenever, and get pissed with their mates.
Yeah, but I'm also a very strong agreement that if your friends can't see that potentially, do you know what, this is not having effect. Like, it's that percentage of people like your brother who couldn't necessarily manage that. You know what I mean? Who people don't see the effects because they're like, no ways, I don't give a fuck about alcohol intake. Let's encourage everybody else to drink around me so I feel better. But it's actually the other people that then suffer. And unfortunately, like, you can't say that you're friends with somebody if they physically can't support your health and well-being. The same with a partner. I can't get on board with it. Like I've always said, babes, you're out the door if you don't support it. And it's the same with vice versa. Of course, because that's why we're still together.
Would you support me if I was to do a bodybuilding competition again?
Yeah, but you'd just be a fucking nightmare to be around, but it's okay.
Would you rub tan all over my body?
I'm not sure about that. We'll leave that for another day. Maybe we'll go another week without talking. Maybe you'll get a podcast next week. Maybe you won't. Who knows? It's always a surprise with us. I'm joking. Anyway, guys, thanks for listening. We'll be back soon. Bye.